Everybody, I'm not dead. So we've got. I guess I should probably explain a little bit about where I was. It's always tricky after a holiday to have something like the local game dev meetup, and I did my best to try and give people advance notice on that. One thing I did stumble on was announcing on Twitter and things like that. But for those of you who are wondering where the stream has been for the last couple of days, on Monday it was Thanksgiving in Canada. So one of the things that I try and do is take the Canadian holidays, kind of take that off for myself. And the real justification for that is just if I don't do that, it basically feels like I am working another day. And what that translates into is basically a feeling that I don't have any days off. And given the fact that I don't normally take streaming holidays, like it'll usually be Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, unless there is essentially an existing holiday or a prior commitment, and we'll talk about that next, I keep streaming. And it's not the best. I will probably at some point, if I take a proper holiday, I will likely not stream just because I probably won't be home to do that. But it has been a long time since I've actually taken any kind of holiday, which I don't think is necessarily bad, right? It's just one of those things. I'm going to take a minute here and bring up the hidden papers in case we want to talk about one of those. So one of the ways that I try and avoid some kind of burnout, both in the workplace but also for stream, is to make sure that I take the days that I have off work and take those as proper holidays. It's also one of the reasons why, in theory, a weekend is a really good time to do a stream, but I don't do those streams because, again, it basically means that I have a 7-day work week. Although on the weekends I do the YouTube stuff, so it's not a perfect system. So that accounts for Monday, but what happened on Wednesday? So for those of you that don't know, on the third Wednesday of every month in Ottawa, where I live, well, not actually, I shouldn't say every month. There's usually, I think, usually around Christmas, and I think there's one summer one where they usually take the time off. But in any case, there's a local game dev collective. And it's a really interesting one. It's not the only, it's not kind of the only game developer group, but it's one that I really liked. Actually, I'll take a minute to just sort of properly shout these guys out because it's worth, it is actually worth mentioning that I was very close to just sort of giving up on sort of little local communities like this. There was in Vancouver, there's Full Indie, which I really only started going to kind of near the end of my time there. And, you know, there's Vancouver has a pretty active game development scene, both in terms of sort of professional game development. Well, sorry, it's all professional game development, but in terms of sort of established and, you know, very experienced developers. So I think the Coalition is based in Vancouver. These are the people who do the Gears of War series. I know Respawn has an office in Vancouver. I believe the team that is dedicated to Apex Legends is housed there, although they may have expanded that to their third office now as well. Obviously, Electronic Arts, very large presence there. Quite a few people who work for EA Sports, but not just exclusively EA Sports. Relics based in Vancouver, Blackbird Interactive. What were some of the other ones? I can't remember if Radical is still a thing. And then, of course, that's also not counting a very active mobile game scene, right? It's very difficult. It's kind of interesting to see some of the discussions about gaming and the gaming business, because very often you will see people having a discussion about the gaming business, and it's one that does not mention and very much has the kind of gives the impression that people are not at all thinking and do not register, you know, mobile or Roblox. Now, look, let's be honest here, right? Sometimes that is just out of scope for the conversation. But I do think that probably it is fair to say that I think a lot of people overlook just how successful Roblox is. And there is still this rather persistent, although probably unhelpful, belief that mobile gaming is somehow a different form of gaming. And I mean, I would sort of hope that stuff like the Switch, and other sort of low-powered gaming, because I mean, the Switch is fairly old now, so it wasn't cutting edge in terms of its capabilities at the time that it was released, and certainly now it doesn't strike me as necessarily easy to be able to bring a high-powered game onto it. That is incredibly entertaining console. So you'd sort of think that would be, that would kind of cover it by now, but there's still a fairly large number of gamers who don't necessarily, basically don't see mobile as sort of the same, or see it as a different kind of gaming. And this does tend to translate into conversations about gaming. So, anyways, there was a point to that whole rant, and I've lost it because I haven't had my coffee. I may actually make some for the stream. But anyways, oh yeah, sorry. So, I think Eastside Games would be an example of a fairly successful mobile developer. I could be wrong on that. I will confess, as much as I try to keep on top of these things, I haven't lived in Vancouver for a few years, so it's tricky for me to keep track of where everyone is and what they're doing. But certainly it's it's a very active scene. It's very vibrant, and it's one where in terms of, I'm trying to think of a nice way to put this, like, insofar as people still consider the idea of a gaming career, right, a living that is sustained through the creation of games, that has to make money one way or another, right? And mobile is definitely a way to do that. And there are various ways to make money in mobile. Some are better than others. But I think for a very large number of people, probably a larger number than people appreciate, that dream of game development is only made possible through mobile gaming. And I mean, the easiest one that I could think of here would just be if you take a look at the value of the Activision Blizzard deal for Microsoft. The amount of that purchase price, which was, I think, probably a very, very good deal for Microsoft. I don't think people appreciate just how much of that value just came from King, which is the Candy Crush Saga developer. Anyways. So I like this sort of thing. I realize that I am not in the game industry in any sort of sense that people would normally. I mean, it's the common thing that comes up with the essays, right? You're not in the industry, you don't make games, what do you know? I complain about this a lot, but this is not a group that you necessarily want to try to appeal to anyway, right? Because if you do actually go out and make a game, then they're just going to say that it doesn't count, right? You could, short of making like Subnautica as a one-person team, obviously something impossible, that goalpost is always going to be moved. But the... where I can, where I find games like this, once upon a time, hey, Sophia, once upon a time when when I was just starting with Cultist Simulator, it was an odd little prototype on, on itch. Now, it wasn't the JavaScript prototype, which is the first version of it. I was aware that the developer had done a previous game, although I don't really think... I kind of bounced off of Sunless Sea. I was one of those people who was kind of turned off by the onboarding. Clearly enjoying Cultist Simulator and liking the Horizon Signal, I wanted to give that another shot. But the thing for me was that Cultist Simulator was something by someone who I'd known had made a game before. It seemed very interesting and unlike anything that I had played before, and I really connected with it. and all that other stuff sort of came through. But it's obviously I spent a lot of time playing this game, and then for the other games that I play, they do tend to be a bit more mainstream. I'd like to try and get a few more of the indies in where I can, but the other thing is that I don't, I kind of like to follow things that I think might be interesting or that I would enjoy, and that can often mean commercially available, like more commercial games as well as indies. But where I can, it is always interesting to try and look in places where you either wouldn't normally look, or potentially where you're following people who have done things that you like in the past but aren't necessarily predictable. And very often local game dev communities are like that. It's also helpful for people who don't normally go to these things. First of all, I do encourage you, if you live in even sort of a moderately sized city. I mean, the game development tools are widely available now. So I think there are probably more people with game development aspirations and hopefully actually advancing those interests. So I think probably there are lots of opportunities for meetups like that, probably ones that already exist. And if it happens to be the case that there isn't one in your community, you might be the one to start it. Somebody has to do that, and it can often be quite a rewarding experience. So because I enjoyed Full Indie, I did want to see if there was something like that in Ottawa. And the first one that I went to was actually a Unity meetup. I won't say the person's name, but this is actually a fairly notorious figure now. Does have a successful game, but has effectively burned all of their bridges in the process. And I remember just sort of hearing this guy, very, very strong opinions, sort of the idea of how, going to school is for idiots. He didn't go to school and he's successful, so, you're just a sucker if you do that, blah, blah, blah. I think you know the type. It wasn't the only speaker at the meetup, but definitely was very off-putting. And then I went to this group that I go with now. Definitely much more of an indie vibe, and it takes place in a bar which is sort of filled with sort of Soviet propaganda posters and things like that. And I actually ran into a guy who gave sort of, if it was a dating profile, it would be like every red flag available. Now, I'm not going to try and find a date at a local game dev meetup, right? But yeah, like, just I remember like talking with this guy, and it's like, what the hell is happening in this community? Like, this is two jackasses that I've wound up talking to. Yeah, in any case, the rest of it turns out that was I think the only time this person had ever stopped by. The organizers were really cool. The presentations were really interesting. And since then I've sort of followed through, but like for two really weird encounters, I would have, I potentially just disconnected from it. But in terms of the local dev community, Toronto's going to be the bigger place in terms of developers, but there's people who worked on Cuphead and Tunic. I think there was the Keep Talking and Nobody Explodes people were at least or not. I don't know if they still are, but I know they were based in Ottawa for a while. But the big one is, and I kind of like to highlight this, is that if you go in with an expectation that everything you're going to play is super polished, or that it's going to be like everything in there is for you, that will often be quite disappointing. But if you kind of go in, the analogy I like making, this is going to sound unkind to local developers, I don't necessarily mean it in that sense. I mean this more in a state of mind rather than the quality of what's coming out. But if you kind of treat it like, you have a friend who's in a garage band, and you're watching a bunch of other garage bands play, you're not necessarily going there for, the best music experience you'll ever have, right? If you go to a more traditional concert by a well-established band with a big budget, that's probably going to be an experience that, is where you have a reasonable expectation of hearing good music. If you go to a very fringe local show, you are going to hear some very strange things sometimes. And that can be really rewarding, right? If you go outside of your normal experiences, then there's usually something interesting there. But again, this is the important thing, is like not everything at a presentation like that is necessarily going to be to your interest. You go there to show support, because when you do nurture that kind of talent, that is something that will eventually make something that is to your taste. I don't know, I just sort of feel where I can, I like to be encouraged in terms of things. Doesn't mean that it's free of criticism, but to be able to show things and actually to reward people for putting in the effort and actually taking the time to share what they do, I think is important to do. And so all of that is a very long way. Number one, it gives people a chance to come in, but it's also kind of a long way of explaining how I think there is a lot of value in going to that, both in terms of me keeping in touch with projects that I think are interesting and are worth sharing. And there's definitely been a few from the local meetup that I've shared on the channel. And on top of that, I think being able to, just being able to go in there and sort of take the pulse and see what's going on, I think is worthwhile as well. So, but it does make it awkward where the holiday falls on the third week, because that usually means that I have 2 days in a row where I am not streaming. And that's my excuse. So, here we are. Now, I may take a small break earlier on to make some coffee. But I do want to get a read on where I was, because the drawback about having a week off, and then on top of that, to have that week be one where where I'm also recording YouTube videos, it is hard to keep track of where we were. Okay, so first of all, it's winter. Which means I should be thinking about the next salon. I don't recall if this is going to be a visitor who... Yeah, I don't recall if this visitor is going to be bringing a new event or not. Oh, there was one thing I wanted to try. So I was trying to make Yorkshire pudding the other day, and I had this hypothesis that I was short on... or that the... yes, okay. So... I think I had, when it says mix with water for batter, I had cake batter, which is a different thing. Batter is it's an entirely different matter. Okay, well that actually makes me feel a little bit better about some of my cooking prospects, because I was trying to make Yorkshire pudding, and it didn't seem to make sense to use dough. The closest I could think of would be cake batter, but I wasn't able to make anything out of cake batter. But I, again, sort of took leave of my senses when it came to the difference between batter and cake batter. So clearly one does not make Yorkshire pudding out of cake batter. It was my effort to try and approximate what was probably there. So I feel a little foolish about that. But in any case, we will work on making some batter, because that will add a whole bunch of other recipes for me to experiment with. Okay. So let me just take a second here and see if I was planning... a salon. It should be in my... Okay, I think... Yeah, I'm not doing a very good job of labeling my... I'm not doing a very good job of labeling my notes. So, I have a note here which says Igdistis, Connie, Wakefield, Serena, and the Kills. I'm not opposed to this. Under events, so we have completed the... we've completed this story. We need to help Connie make her decision. I really should be focusing on those texts, to be honest. We need to help out Arthur Moore, but we don't have Deoris, so there isn't quite the same reason for me to be following through with those. And I believe... Oh! The Dappled... That's right. Okay, so that gives me a completely different set of guests to invite this time. So we should bring Dr. Adim. Come on, iPad. I trust that you can pair the pencil. There we go. Okay, so under sort of continuing the Dappled Rose, so what was the meaning of the black and white flower that grew in the deep desert? So for this we have Adim, we have Aaron Peel, we have Dagmar. That'll be the first Salon we have with Dagmar, and Olympi. So we can invite another guest. Connie and Zachary is kind of interesting. Oh no, hang on. There was also a connection between... Was it... I think it might have been Serena and Igdistis. Okay, anyways. So Adim, Aaron, Dagmar, Olympi. So I could bring in the Kills, or I could try and bring another occult figure. I kind of want to bring, if I'm going to be bringing in... Okay, so we've had Eason before, we've had Douglas Moore, Igdistis. I mean, I could try and bring Schaller, I suppose. I don't know if I've had Yvette Southey. Yeah, you know what? Let's try Yvette's. Now, what'll be interesting on this one is I don't think I have the tastes for most of these guests. So I'm going to check that first. So for Igdistis, it's heart. It looks like scale for Adim. Oh, Igdistis was the other one. Okay, so scale, Aaron, Dagmar, and Olympi. Okay, knock, Knock, Moon, and Forge. I'm gonna guess for Yvette Southey, I don't know what I need. So Madame Bichet needs Ford, Easton Feckery needs Moon for food, Sky for drink, Serena Blackwood needs Ford, Stanislav John Schaller needs Heart for food and drink, Igdistis needs Heart for food and drink, Wakefield needs Winter food and drink, Douglas needs Lantern food and drink, Arthur Moore Lantern, Lachaima, Edge, Aladim Scale, Zita Bukhara, Edge, Connie Sky, Peel Moon, Daymare Knock. So Yvette Southey is unknown. Technically I could look it up, but I don't want to look it up. I will find out. Okay. So I need to think about a good plan for the day. So one option, of course, is just to try and cook as much as possible, which is fair, especially because I have some new recipes. Actually, you know what? That is slightly more appealing, but there is also the matter of where I want to level things up. So I believe I was working on finishing off the tree here. So for Nyctodromi, it was going to be level 8 Edict's Liminal and level 9 Coil and Chasm. Okay, so actually let's queue those up. Those aren't actually the most important for me to be following right now, but I'm gonna settle for some progress rather than you know, kind of nothing. So okay, so for Edict's Liminal, I'm going to need that's from 3 to 8, so I need 5 lessons there. For Coil and Chasm, that's going to require 2 more lessons. So that's Scale and Nectar that Coil and Chasm needs. Edict's Liminals, Knock, and Moth. Now, if I want to go down the path of Skolakosophy, so I believe, yes. Okay, so that's either Horns and Ivories, Orchids and Narcotics, Serpents and Venoms, Rhyme. Okay, actually, Shopped would be good. So working out Skolakosophy would not be a bad idea here. So Horns and Ivories is already at 5, so technically we could commit that. Horns and Ivories is kind of helpful, though. So maybe here's what I'll look at instead. Coil and Chasms... Okay, so Quenchings and Quellings... Oh, did I forget? I think I might have erased some of this. Oh, yes. Okay, hang on. I've got it. So Bosk will be Scale and Sky. Preservate... Hello, Takri! Very good to see you, and Algrins, I saw you in chat. I try not to shout out the people, or to talk to the people who have not made their presence known inside of chat, but very much appreciated. Did you get a chance to see the Discord message, Kree? I was being silly on Reddit. Although I feel bad because someone said that it was very poetic, and I'm like, oh, I don't want to plagiarize. I just want I want to see if anybody recognizes it. Okay. So I apologize. I know I did this last time, but I actually just erased that. So. Okay, so we have Heart is accounted for, Grail is accounted for, Edge is not accounted for. Moth is accounted for, Rose is not. Nectar is accounted for, Forge is not. Lantern's accounted for, Sky is accounted for twice. Knock is accounted for. Moon is accounted for. Winter is accounted for. And somehow I forgot Scale up here. That's accounted for. Okay. So what I'm trying to do here is I'm trying to prioritize what should go into the top slot for Skolakosophy. Now, one of the ways that I can do that is to try and decide what will be the recipe that I want to use the most. But another way of looking at this would be I do want to give myself access to all of the different books. And so if I have three missing kind of aspects or powers, principles or powers. So if I have three of those missing, it's hard for me to say that I'm going to solve all of this with Skolakosophy. And in fact, yeah, it's Birdsong and Skolakosophy. No, actually, Birdsong's already accounted for that. So it really is just Skolakosophy that has the remaining spare space. So Horns and Ivories is Knock and Scale. I have a feeling that I already checked this and I'm not going to be able to get what I want. Grail and Nectar are accounted for. Serpents and Venoms is Scale and Moon. Rhyme and Remembrance is Winter and Moon, but probably I'm using that on the beach. And Pentiments and Precursors is Scale and Grail, which means none of these are going to give me the Edge, Rose, and Forge that I need. The consolation, I suppose, that I have would be... What's my best edge? Oh boy. Wait a minute, you mean to tell me that Illumination doesn't have... Okay, yeah. Thought so. So Edict's Marshal has got Edge, so we're good there. So it's really Rose and Forge that I'm short on. Now let me just double check. I think that's the only one that I've maxed out. Yeah, okay. So, if that is the case, so Skolakosophy doesn't really solve anything for me. I have not yet worked out the placement for Birdsong, so let's just see where that goes. Hill and Hollow is Moon and Scale. Path and Pilgrim has Rose, so that makes that one fairly attractive. Wolf Story, so in this case now we're looking for the missing Forge, which I think... Transformations and Liberations... I can live with it. if it comes down to that. So Wolf Stories is Scale and Moon. Sky Stories would be Rose and Sky. So that's another candidate. And then Leaves of Thorns is already going to be in position 9. So the question would be, do I want Sky Stories or do I want Path and Pilgrim at the higher level? Honestly, either one works. I haven't normally used Sky Stories, but I'm not opposed to it. Maybe it's just a question in terms of racing them. Okay. I don't need to sort this all out for myself right now. Well, I mean, I do kind of need to figure out where I'm going with some of these, so let's say let's put Rhyme and Remembrance in position 5. Orchids and Narcotics in 6. Pentiments and Precursors in 7. Serpents and Venoms in 8. And Horns and Ivories in 9. That's a largely arbitrary choice that I've done there, but let's do... How many extra Sky do I have? Okay, so we already have quite a few Sky, so I think that'll mean Path and Pilgrims 8. Wolf Stories 7, Hill and Hollow 6, Sky Stories 5. Alright, like I said, largely an arbitrary choice there, but I think I can live with that. But we're back to the old sort of the old problems here. So let's start with we start with the Edict's Liminal and Coil and Chasm. So that'll get me maxing out Nyctodromi. And I think maybe might be an idea to try Birdsong next. So Sky Stories, I need 3. And Hill and Hollow. I guess we'd make that 4. Okay, more than enough for me to go to work with. Hello, Vanguard Mastered. And hello, Index Gnome. Alright. So yeah, sorry, that was, I realized I was sort of treading old ground there, but let's make one more task ahead of me. Let's see what I want to do with opening things up. So I have a storm available to me. Now's the time for me to think about whether or not there's anything that I want to make with those storms. I think really if I don't... So the Sky and the Heart... Sky and Heart I should be considering. The Sky is tempting, but I may not have enough to bring it over the edge. So I'll reflect on this just a little bit. So we've got Mr. Kill has 1 Sky. Oh, you know what? I don't think I've made the Mazarine Fife yet. I also think I have very few opportunities to make the Mazarine Fife. But I theoretically could do it at the Gullscry workbench. Let's see what the day might bring. Okay, so we're going to need some kind of wood, and unfortunately there's no... oh, damn it. There's no skywood. But we'll make do. So that's available in both. Alright, so wood, woven, remains, tool, or ductile. Alternatively, wood, tool, remains, ductile, made of wood. Not looking good. Yeah, used with a scholar level recipe. So this is so maddening, because if I could just get one more in here, we'd have it. So what I want to think about is what other work site will let me add scale, lantern, or heart. Yeah, so this doesn't work. This wouldn't allow me to add the wood. I don't think the necropsy table would help me here, but... Well, it does allow in a material. Unfortunately, I have the same problem as before. The carcass and remains don't offer a lot of sky options. I believe there is something sky-oriented in there, but again, in terms of practical use, it doesn't help me right now. Now this has some promise, so we could pull off... Yes, the only thing is the element of the soul is missing there. I'm not ruling this out. Oh. So unfortunately, I think the wood's out of the question there. Yep, so we definitely need the wood. Now unfortunately here we don't have a place for the storm. Clumbic sarcophagus, yeah, it doesn't have the elements that I need. The Rowanarium, close, but I don't well, hang on. For any of these, the first evaluation should be whether or not it can take the wood. So this one doesn't work because of the lack of scale. The kitchen ranges, weirdly enough, feel like they should work. So for instance here, if we did something like over 600 index gnome. So we can add the furs and feathers. We can even add the storm. Now the element of the soul is a little harder. But I believe because the wood counts as fuel... so we're at 7. So one nice thing about this one is there is the option of using the blue crown. Actually, I guess... No, that doesn't work. That was unexpected. Actually, the funny thing here is that Sebastian's swords, I believe, count as kitchenware. This is so dumb. Okay, so what this allows me to do now is I believe I can add the blue crown, which should have 2 sky aspect. Yep. So now we can add any element of the soul. Fascinating. Okay. Oh, it's celestial music. Okay, no, I got it wrong. Unless it's the 15, in which case that was never going to happen. I was probably wrong with it, but you know what? At this point, yeah, no, I think I just think I did something dumb here. Although the Mazarine Fife really doesn't feel like it should be a level 15. Anyway, staring at it will not make it any closer to a reality. So the reason why I went on that digression was because I wanted to see if there was a way that I could sort of supercharge someone for the Shrieking Gull Cloud. Let's just accept that for what it is. So we add the Faust, which would be 1. So that gives us 2. Our memory would be Storm. So that brings us up to 6. And then we use the tool, which currently is just 1. So we're at 7 of 12. And so what I essentially need to do with the food, drink, and theoretically wood, except that I do not believe we have any sky wood. You know, it did occur to me that the awakened feather counts as remain. So we'd still need to add the wood. Right, but we can't add on the necropsy table. Okay. Okay, so in terms of what I can do with Mr. Kill, we have food and drink. The question would be, with 7, if I'm trying to get to 12, do I have enough food and drink to be able to generate 5? I think the easy answer to that is no, but let's actually verify that. So one place where I can start would be to look at the Blue Crown Tea. So that is good for 2. So if I had some kind of food that would give me 3 sky, we'd be in business. But I think if I take the time to take a look at my recipes, at least the ones that I've looked at so far, I believe the highest I get is 2 sky, if that. Yeah, so there's a 1 and a 2. No, apparently when I sort the sky... Oh, there we go, yeah. Yeah, so I think the easy answer is we just don't try and get Mr. Kill to look up a room. So with that in mind, I think there's 2 things for me to do tonight. One is to experiment with cooking, because I've been using cake batter without appreciating the fact that there is something different. Cake batter is not batter. And then where I can, let's maybe see if I can get those edicts liminal. So we're looking for knock and moth texts. Which I'm also going to take a second here, just make sure that there isn't any... Okay, so we're already reading the Ceaseless Tantra. Ceaseless Tantra gives me weaving and not working. Weaving and not working gives me heart and moth. So I guess I was trying to bring up Edict's Liminal. I hope I was trying to bring up Edict's Liminal. I do not seem to be trying any other books, though. Okay. If that is the case, Knock and Moth. Well, if it's 5, I really want to use some of these higher level ones. So for instance, Radical Measure would be a good choice, except that I don't have a lot of rows. In fact, what is my strongest rows? Good Lord. Not good. So I can get 4, 6 with a memory, 7. It's a pretty tall order for me to try and take that higher. So there might even be an argument for me to try and move up Sky Stories. You know what? I think I prefer that. It's fairly clear that we need to get some more rows to work with. So leveling up Sky Stories will enable other things. I'll still process the Ceaseless Tantra here, but we're gonna change the approach, and we might as well earn a little more money. Could offer help with correspondence and arithmetic. Not everyone here knows their letters, or add a coin to find visitors seeking employment. Oswin, lovely to see you. How are you doing? For those of you who don't know, Oswin Meow has actually been doing a lot of wonderful work with Book of Hours on her own channel, and it's very exciting to watch her play it because it's her first time going through Book of Hours, and she is this nice spot. So she's a little more relaxed about backseating than I am, and so there's some back and forth. She just handles it better. But I've really enjoyed this process because she does largely want to avoid spoilers. So in this case, if there's an opportunity to sort of see how there's this opportunity to try and find out what's going on, she'll take it. But in this case here, there's a little more interactivity that I know some people want than what I can offer. But what has been most rewarding is, at least whenever I'm there, we get a chance to sort of talk about the setting. And so in that case, we'll maybe be able to talk about some things that we find interesting, usually lore-wise. And in fact, it wasn't the most recent stream, but it was a stream that I recently watched. She was just very interested in the books and wanted to know a bit more about the setting. And so simply took the time to sit down, read all the books that were available, and it wasn't even for some sort of instrumental purpose, like I want to get end memories or something like that. It was just interest in the books. And the thing I liked the most about that particular stream was it was very clear how sort of Oswin would be starting from a certain position with a lot of these books, and it was almost this idea of okay, this book said a thing, but I'm not really sure what to make of it, to all of a sudden a few different it's like what I talk about, but it's really nice to actually see this implemented. To see Oswin sort of start with, I'm really not sure what this is trying to say, or I'm not clear on where this was going, but let's keep going, to all of a sudden sort of realizing, oh, hang on, this was referred to before, this means this thing. And she was able to sort of find out things like the Carapace Cross and what they might be. And it was kind of funny because I don't mean this as like a backhanded compliment, Oswin, but like Oswin was taking this perspective, which is quite different from how I do it, which is she was really trying to use the lessons that you would get from or the memories that you would get from a book to be sort of the key through which you'd understand the book. And I don't think the memories are assigned randomly, but I don't always find it the most helpful framing for understanding the various books. So like this is a perfect example, right, where this is the thing that always sort of bugs me about backseating, is that this is a ripe time for me to just sort of go in and say, well, here's my interpretation of the game, blah, blah, blah. But because Oswin is actually a very interesting person, full stop, on top of being somebody who I think is actually quite a good streamer and is very good at sharing these sorts of things, being able to watch her engage with the lore, sometimes for the very first time, although I do know that she's familiar with Cultist Simulator, this sort of, it was interesting to watch her figure things out in terms of the settings, or being able to just sort of ask some interesting questions, ones that maybe I don't necessarily have an answer to. And I don't know, I always find that sort of thing quite exciting, just because I like seeing I kind of like seeing how other people come to certain conclusions about the game. And I think it's because at this point I feel like I have a fairly good grip on the game, not necessarily the setting, but despite that, I also know the times when I've really sort of let my imagination run wild and have not, like, I've kind of gotten these results that aren't at all consistent with how the world of the Secret Histories works. There are things that I maybe want to be true, but aren't necessarily true. So, being able to watch Oswin play the game and just sort of see how she navigates, what's true, what's not, I find personally very interesting. Just because it's, like I said, it's a chance for me to sort of see someone approach this stuff for the first time, and then maybe have a moment to think a little bit about how I think about the game myself. So anyways, a really, really rewarding stream. So thank you for doing that, Oswin. And Zero Dree, hope you are doing well. All right, so we've got a pear meringue. Now, Oswin, I will say something that I've done for the pear meringue has the spicing aspect. So you'll notice here I'm making a dessert. This is something that I believe you ran into previously. Now, one thing that does interest me here is it looks like I'm actually already making a bunch of things for a dinner. So I've changed my dinner plans, but that's fine. I'll see how much of this I can repurpose towards my new plans. And here's the hen's egg. And now it suggests a meal would be welcome. We'll see who the visitor is first. If you want, I'm very happy to tell you what item has the spicing aspect. I think it actually says it in the patch notes, but it was close enough to something that I think you were about to figure out on your own that I'll let that be an option for you rather than a declaration on my part. Okay, so the other one, we're still waiting for the affair of the developments in the world beyond Brandkrug, drawing a new incident. Okay, we are definitely getting the new incident. So if that's the case, yeah, sounds good. The thing is, when the way you were playing yesterday, I couldn't quite figure out which rooms you had open. So it may be that you don't have access to it, or it may be that it's just something you haven't noticed. But either way, you'll get it. And again, it's something that's written in the notes, so you technically have access to the answer anytime that you want. Okay. Where was I? We're still waiting on the visitor. It's okay. You know what? I think just for the For the purposes of my salon, let's see what I can recover. So the boiled egg has got scale food. And that's actually the only guess that satisfies right now. The baked pear meringue has moon, so that's Aaron taken care of. The stuffed pale marrow, so that potentially doesn't help anybody. The roast potatoes have forge, so we're good there. And the stargazy pie has scale and... Okay, so the thing we're missing right now is knock. So we'll take a minute here, consult my recipe list. Take a look for something with knock. And of course the open question is what... okay, so Walls of Ease, King's Luck Pie, Honey Haunted... Man, knock is tough, but game pie or game chips. So we've got a main, side dish, I guess a first course, pudding. Okay. So yeah, the game chips are a pretty easy fix. So we need the knife and the dripping. All right, make game chips, a dish with edge, forge, heart, and knock. Okay, so I suppose the next question here, and this will actually be where Dr. Adim is a little bit hard to satisfy, is that we want drink for everyone. And I believe with Dr. Adim, if I am not mistaken, I wrote down that he wants scale, food, and drink, but that he also can't have intoxicating drink. Oh, it says no intoxicating drink, so it could be that maybe it doesn't have to be scale. So Domaine Reveille wouldn't work because it's intoxicating. Do we have any... well, to serve, but that doesn't really help. It's interesting. Oh, here we go. Beverage. Okay. Oh, Don Lion coffee. Okay, so that covers Adim. Aaron Peel. Technically water will do. Now knock. I'm actually trying to think what kind of drink has knock. Glassfinger toxin, technically. A sacrament acite seems a bit much to give a guest. I mean, I'll do it if I have to, but I'd rather... If I could make moth orchid tea, that would be bananas. I guess the miskissed water might do the trick. I have plenty of it, but that would be good for me to keep an eye on. Let's just make sure that I don't have... Yeah, okay, so... I've never had to... Oh, hang on. No, it's actually a pretty simple one. Cater and hero, second flush of Sam. Okay. As far as a forged drink goes, we do have the Veiled Goddess, but I think the Honey Scar Jasmine tea works too. Okay, so I mean, we're more or less ready to go as far as the salon is concerned. I still need to serve all of this stuff, but maybe we start making some invitations while I can. So let's say Dr. Aaron Peel. So Dr. Aaron Peel actually needs some effort here. Let's make sure we use Ava's desk. The typewriter is quite helpful. So I think you were talking about this earlier, Oswin. The good news about the typewriter is that you get, actually there's more than one typewriter, but you get unlimited uses for this as far as invitations are concerned, but it's not a full solution to invitations. What I think it practically does for you is it saves you the element of the soul, but it comes with the cost that there is this typewriter. Now they call it unromantic. In 50 years, it'll be the most romantic thing in this room. Or alternatively, the silent typewriter, an unusual custom device, which has got winter. But in this case here, you'll notice that the power isn't really as high, right? You've got one winter or you've got one forge. And the only, even a lower level ink like Catwink gives you 2 moon or 2 scale. So essentially what you're trading off is you may be getting your element of the soul back as far as the brewing the ink is concerned, but you are kind of bringing on another challenge in the sense that you do need to you need to bring the remaining elements of the soul. Sorry, not elements. So you need to bring the remaining aspect. So in this case, we are going to bring Peel. What do I want to do with the talk verb? I guess we need to wait to see who's arriving first. What about consider? Because I feel like should be using that. No packages to open? No. Oh, hang on. What about my... Did I not read the paper? I'm really letting it slip. Investigate the object. Mademoiselle Margot Matutine. I'm trying to remember if she's in my book or not. Looks like she isn't. This, of course, gives me a reason to satisfy her curiosity. Socialite yachtswoman, and under the name Morgan, an Alucite, Elysian. The former means that, among other things, that she eats people. The latter means, among other things, that she is not to be taken lightly. And I do know you actually just recently saw this person. Awesome. So 3 Grail, 3 Sky, and we are working on the Affair of the Unfinished Lark. This incidentally means that Hokobald de Posen will likely be returning. The Affair of the Unfinished Lark. For 3 years, the sculptor adept Zuthamalim Zidane has labored at his masterpiece, an abstract sculpture that speaks with the voice of the desert lark. And now, puzzlingly and suddenly, he is dead. So I suppose I didn't need to get the scrap, given that we'll be getting that from adding her to the journal anyway, or the little black books, but I just need to post it. Okay, so we're gonna refill that just because our next invitation will be to Dr. Ibn al-Adim. At least I thought it would be. Ah, Rose. Yes, considerably more difficult. Gives me another reason to work on my Sky Stories, I think. So we'll set that aside for now. Let's try and bring Dagmar in. Dagmar would like knock. We can accommodate. But not here. I guess I should say Daymare, but anyway. I have enough here to craft a letter inviting Daymare to Brandkrug. I don't really have a whole lot to do with the talk other than to talk to Madame. I mean, I suppose I can talk to the chickens as well, but let's just take care of the matter. Hello, my librarian. I have become a patron of a project so delightful. You heard the news about Zidane, no? So sad, but happily his work remains intact. I would see it completed, and so I come to learn. So this is a fairly straightforward one for us. We just really need to give whatever small skybook we have, so this is what I need. It is always such a pity, the end of an artist. Let us hope he did not die in vain. An afternoon spent profitably, reading newspapers to the curious, writing affectionate letters for the lonely, steering farmers to the requirements of the Ministry of Agriculture. So it's not like we need the extra elements of the soul, but I do sort of like cycling through the Wist if I can. Now I just need to post it. Okay. On to Olympie Bichet. She will want moth. Not that desk then. This one I don't think covers moth. Do I only have one desk that does moth? Can't see how... Oh, nope, collars does. All right. We don't need too much. Request Olympie's presence. I have enough here to craft a letter inviting Olympie to Brandkrug. All right, we are throwing away the rock. Renounce. If I cast an object into the sea, it will be lost, perhaps irretrievably. And another driftwood fragment. So I'd love to turn this into some kind of flute, but that one's going on the bridge. Nothing's history when it first happens. So there's our occult scrap. What else do we have? All right. So I do still want to go to the moor. I'm not expecting to get too much from the moor right now. Actually, I should remember that I've already got 5 for Inks of Power, so I should probably be using that to bring in a Dean next time. And that's that. I could use a glass of water to restore something, but I'd prefer to do that with any kind of food or drink. Now I just need to post it. All right. So finally, Yvette Southey before we try Dr. Deem. Now this one's pretty straightforward for any of these, I imagine, but... Now, it's worth mentioning, one of the other options that I have is to invite guests based on the lessons that I think they're going to give me. I'm not doing that for the simple reason that I feel like it's more interesting for me to see what sort of follow-on stories I can do. But also right now we're in the nice little exploration phase, so I don't need to worry. I don't need to worry too much about directing the conversation, as much as I can anyway. As the game likes to remind us, it's a conversation, not an interrogation. Alright, we'll stay on the bridge then. So now's not a bad time for me to rest and get my core back. A quick nap in a warm bed with something comforting to drink, while the winds chase the clouds and the clouds chase the sun. I will probably turn this into batter in a minute, but we'll wait on it. And yeah, at the moment, I'm not too opposed to just harvesting some eggs while I can. We've got more, we definitely have more vegetables and pumpkins than I know what to deal with. The Ceaseless Tantra. The avant-garde choreographer Nicholas Caroly supposedly incorporated this tantra into his menacing ballets. The Ceaseless Tantra is devoted mostly to warnings about the lively creatures called pracusigants, but concludes with a chant which can be used to summon them. It observes that pracusigants can be taught any dance, but they prefer only one. That which does not cease is not ceased. So we got an impulse for that. We will catalog accordingly. Weaving and not working, which will translate into another level for Edict's Liminal. And am I running? I have a feeling I'm out of space for the impulses. Why? Where did all my cheerful ditties go? Oh, there's only one, Perugian Diaries, right. Okay, so this one's a little harder for me to deal with just because I'm probably going to need 2 shelves for extra impulses. Okay, so realistically, I think I need to just start migrating some of these things up higher. Okay. That's not as horrible as I thought it would be, but... But we're still short of places for both. So in the end, I'm going to want basically both of these shelves cleared. So where's another good spot for my overflow? One option I do have, so if I reorganize like so, I can sort of recognize the fact that I'm going to be trying to level up Sky Stories. So Sky Stories is ultimately going to need 3 rows or sky. I think it's the level 10 or higher that give me the rose or sky, so... yeah, these are all... Actually, maybe these might work too. So that's Moon and Winter. This is Edge and Moon. Temptations of Architecture is actually kind of tempting, because that I could use with Edict's Liminal. Okay, so we're going to bring that one into the to read pile. So I guess in the grand scheme of things, I just need 2 more of those. Now this one works well for that rose and sky ambition, so if I can get 2 with rose or sky in it, we're laughing. A lot of Tridusma Hira. Alright, we're darn close. Okay, so these are tough. Opening the sky, I think I have a fighting chance for, though. So we do Watchman's Paradoxes? No, Sights and Sensations is probably the better one. So opening the sky will give me strings and songs. Strings and songs gives me sky. Oops, sky. So yes, we're going to add that to the to-read list. And that should get me some rows that I can work with. And we have the game chips. So I'm going to set aside the marrow, I think. At least temporarily. So now we have game chips for Daymare. And I think the time has come for me to make some batter. Okay. I could also try and open the sack of vegetables again, but we're close enough to finishing the chat. Yeah, we'll let it wait. Although, I do have my lesson now, so I should be working on weaving and Edict's Liminal, rather. So Edict's Liminal, we need Knock and Moth. We have Moth here. Might as well take advantage of this one. So we really just need to read one more book to get that. Probably a pattern is the most likely for me to avoid duplication. I really should have made better use of the storm today. I kind of let the day just sort of slide by. Actually, assault will work as well. Okay. So if I want to end the day on a high note, let's actually take some time to work out what I can do with my various sky. So we can add the storm here. We don't have, well, we have the confounding parable, I suppose. Brush light with a feather and see dawn essence drip from the air. So I suspect here we're going to need to use these. This is just a matter of adding the feather now. Brush a light with a feather. Okay, so misread that. Here we just need to add a lantern. Nope, that doesn't work. So we were right to use this altar. There we go, Ichor Auroral. So I suppose that invites the question, what is the higher level one for this? I don't think the Ichor Auroral would be something... I mean, maybe it is, but how would I know if I only have the one? That's really a call. We would need the Mazarine Fife to push that ahead, I think. I think the storm is the biggest knock that I have to work with here, but we can still see what's possible with the rest of these. So for a scholar level recipe, align the shadows through glass. So let's try the Wistful Air. For Scholar Lover recipe, apply the formula to a light and see a rosy essence drip from the air. So that's another Ichor Auroral. But I don't think it hurts to queue these up just so I can remember what each of these things do. Okay, Sacrolamea. If we take the Awakened Feather for a Scholar level recipe, whisper it to carved wood. My god, did I really... Okay. This did not need to be nearly as hard as I made it out to be. So, there's our Faust. Take any old wood. We'll take one off the bridge. Combine that with the Storm. There we go. Craft a Mazarine Fife. Carved a sky aspected instrument. Sacrolamea with Scholar level wood plus, Scholar level sky plus wood creates the Mazarine Fife. Silly of me not to have tried that before, but there we go. Right, we still wanted a place to put our Impulse books. I really don't have a need for Tridesma Hyra, but then again, I also don't have a need for the wolf stories right now. Hello, Prosciutto Fist. How are you doing? I saw that on Discord you were playing Lethal Company, but I guess you're not doing that on stream. For those of you who don't know, Prosciutto Fist is another streamer who I found through Book of Hours, although I think the less time she spends in it, the happier she'll be. Oh, okay, good. She didn't hear that. No. Anyways, Prosciutto Fist is another streamer. Actually, was just playing Spooky. Is it Spooky's Jump Scare Mansion in HD? I know they had to rename it from. I know they had to rename it from. They had to rename it from the old one, but Pro is a lot of fun to watch. Also gets along very well with Oswin Meow, which is kind of a double-edged sword. Because in one sense, it's actually very nice to see streamers who maybe wouldn't have otherwise run into each other sort of get along very well. But I also sort of know that this also has empowered them to gang up on me. And I don't know, I'm easily bullied by these two, so if any of you would like to protect me, I am available. In any case, Prosciutto Fist has a very diverse stream. I think the aim has been to do a few more sort of Halloweenish style games, but I do like talking up a few of the different things that she does that line up with things that I know either people have asked me to do or things that people have liked me doing. So she was reading Dracula on YouTube for a while, and I'm sure we'll be returning to that at some point. It's deserved, Lucy. This is what I'm talking about. So we've got the Dracula reading, for those of you that happen to like spooky tales. I was actually reading the comic The League of Extraordinary Gentlemen before the stream. And for those of you that don't know, Wilhelmina Murray, also known as Mina Harker in the story, is one of the main characters, and it's an interesting one. Actually, have any of you read the comic? Not seen the movie? I've not seen the movie. I have never heard any good things about it, other than that it's a really interesting premise, and I agree. But from what I understand, the movie did not do the premise justice. But I'm curious if anybody here has read the comic. In any case, so there's Dracula. So I know a lot of you ask for audiobooks. Well, Pro actually delivers. Prosciutto Fist has also done history streams every Wednesday. I don't know if you have announced what your next one's going to be. I know what it is, but the movie was fun, but you also watched it on an 8-hour flight. Okay, fair enough. Yeah, I actually, with that particular writer, I've actually noticed that the adaptations have not always been that good to the material, although that doesn't always mean that they are bad movies. So a great example of this would be V for Vendetta. And anybody who has seen it, usually to me they will say, oh, I love that movie. That's a great movie. And, again, I think the world is more interesting if you let people be interested in things and not tell them, their the things that they like are bad actually, right? There's a lot of people like that online. I think snark is cheap, and I prefer to avoid it where I can. Doesn't mean doesn't mean I won't be sarcastic. Doesn't mean I won't be silly. But there's usually some sort of design behind it rather than just being, I like to joke that I'm reflexively awful, but there's usually actually some point behind it. And telling someone this thing that they like is bad actually is not consistent with that. But what I will say is that as much as I enjoyed watching V for Vendetta, I definitely felt that there were a couple of sort of unaddressed, like basically things that the movie seemed to be setting up but never really delivered on. So a good example of this would be the Natalie Portman character really does sort of seem to be set up as sort of this counterweight to V. So V is this destructive force, whereas Evie sort of seems to be set up as some of this more creative and building force, and this idea that you actually need both, right? You have criticism to take things apart, but you have creation to bring them back again, right? And this is something that I think is, even though that comic is originally from the 80s, I actually think that's quite a relevant story for today, for the simple reason that, I'm not that far out of the English departments. No, I actually really like the writer. It's the movie that I'm specifically talking about. So, there's lots of different forms of criticism, critical theory, whatever you want to take, and it can be really interesting stuff, right? There are interesting ways to analyze stories and books, but in the end, I have noticed there's a strong tendency, again, like the example I was giving before, to tell people why this thing you like is bad, actually. And I don't find that very helpful in some cases. I like to think, and I'm really careful to do this in the writers group at work, is to make sure that when something isn't working, to be clear about that, because you do want things to be better, but to offer sort of a way out or a why, or essentially anything other than, meh, I didn't like that. Because it's just such an uninteresting and unhelpful way of talking about it. I mean, sometimes you're stuck and you don't know and you can't help them on the way out. And, in that case, I just get very apologetic and I'm like, I'm really sorry. I don't know how to fix this, but I really liked it up to this point, and I just don't think the ending worked, or something like that. Usually I feel that there's something, something going on there. And where I can, I try to explain, I was with you up to this point, but here's maybe where I lost it. And, in the end, I do kind of appreciate that as a reader, my aim here should not be to write for them, but rather to try and offer what I was thinking when I went through it, right? So, I read this and I was no longer reading your story. I was thinking about your story, and sort of that wonderful spell where you sort of sit down and read a book and you don't realize you're reading a book. You're just experiencing it. That spell was broken. Sometimes that's enough because you've diagnosed the point in which that happened, and the writer can take the time to figure out where they're taking it. In any case, so this is it, and this is hard because people just like telling people what to do. People like saying what's bad. It's hard to sort of put yourself out there and be genuine, and very often I think what people are sometimes learning is not always an appreciation of the things that they're experiencing, but just a way to sort of pick it apart, but not necessarily put it back together again. And I think that there is an important role for that. And so again, in terms of the V for Vendetta book, I felt that in the movie, this was being set up but never paid off. And on top of that, it was actually one thing where I didn't necessarily dislike the ending, but it did sort of feel that things were resolved quite tidily, right? That Parliament gets blown up and everybody takes off their masks and, society is changed. And that seems like a very clean way for what would probably be a very destructive and very chaotic event. Particularly because that is also set up in the movie, right? Where sort of things are getting out of hand in response to V's action, and that's completely consistent with him as this more destructive anarchic force. And so, you know, again, enjoyed the movie, but I sort of felt that there was a little something missing, even though I did enjoy it. And then I read the comic, and all of that is set up. And it doesn't shy away from the hard questions. It is actually, to a certain extent, I won't maybe say sympathetic, but it definitely does a good job of drawing out all of the characters, you know, even in the totalitarian society. These are people with motivations and, you know, their own ideas. And so I was left with this very uncomfortable situation where I felt that as much as I enjoyed V for Vendetta, and I would even go so far as to say it's a good movie, TM, I also think it's possibly an adaptation that if you sat down and said, how do we do the worst adaptation of V for Vendetta, you would actually get that movie. And again, I say this saying that I actually thought it was a pretty good movie. I just thought that as far as an adaptation was concerned, it actually really did not do that very good story justice. But I think it's a bit of a statement on the quality of that story, that a lot of the themes that were present inside of it were actually just kind of begging to be taken out. So by the way, for those of you that enjoyed V for Vendetta, again, please don't take that as me taking your toys away, but please do take it. Please do take that as, hey, did you like V for Vendetta? Well, why don't you try the Super V for Vendetta? And I don't know, your local library should have a copy. Anyways, so with that in mind, I'm going to acknowledge that a lot of people have probably seen League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, which I think is just a really amazing premise for a story. And the first book was really good. The second book just completely outdid itself. I love the idea of that follow-up. And I haven't read Century yet. I'm really looking forward to reading Century. I do have the Black Dossier as well. But they're good ones. Also, I don't know. Comics are having a moment, but they're a different type of storytelling, and I feel that there's something that would align with what people like. Actually, for those of you that like sort of the occultist elements inside of these games, I would actually say, if on the Alan Moore note, he's got a series called Promethea, and it's about as close to sort of almost this didactic work, where I suspect probably most of his occult beliefs have wound up in that book. I am not an occultist, but I do at least find it very compelling storytelling and imagery. But that would be another one that, for those of you that happen to like the deep, dark mysteries, or if you have like a tarot deck at home or something like that, that would be another one. Anyway, sorry. At some point, this was a shout out for Prosciutto Fist, and it wound up into a rant about books or comics that I like. But please do check out Prosciutto Fist and her lovely stream. And she did mention, so I can tie this back from Alan Moore, she is doing Jack the Ripper, which of course is the subject of a very good Alan Moore comic called From Hell. So there you go. Pour it out. All right, let's make some batter. Make batter, an ingredient for a higher purpose. Now I'm just going to test a couple things here. I don't see how the knife or the spices would help. Okay. Pour it out. I can actually probably just make a second one right now, although I'm probably going to run out of flour at this rate. Maybe I should do another order. I will do that in a minute. Let's also make sure that I've got what I need. So the queen's turn. Alright, we're already on our way to getting our next memory. I think it's a little late in the day for me to try any of these other things, so I'll set aside a fete and a tryst for the rest of the day. Shapfos, metal, health. Yeah, so gardening is next. There's not a whole lot of gardening you can do in winter, so maybe we should just start drawing up some water and harvesting some blue crown. What are we looking at? Quiet seasons, yeah. I would not be surprised if we... Oh, pluck the petals of the Lenten rose. I'll take it. Agave Eterna almost certainly won't be, yeah. Okay. Presumably the pear is already... Yeah. Yeah, so it's basically blue crown, which is still a helpful plant to have. I would have thought there'd be at least one more. Oh, here we go. All right, more flowers than I know what to do with. Right now I'm just trying to find uses for my remaining elements of the soul. So I'm probably going to wind up using this fete to invite someone to the house. The metal, Fost, Shapt, and Whist. Okay, so these... In fact, most of these could be used for cooking. But I am going to order some more flour. And as always, Perunculate, deadly. Use gloves to read text produced with this pigment, an ink of power, sometimes called an unsanctioned ink. So we definitely make sure that the minimum wage workers who are opening the letters are met with Perunculate when we make the order. This is what I need. It is always such a pity, the end of an artist. Let us hope he did not die in vain. Alright, so we've got Morgan's card, we've got a bronze Spintria for our trouble, and we've returned the Perugian diaries. So, the affair of the unfinished lark. I'll read this again just because we have got a few more people in chat. For 3 years, the sculptor adept Zuthimalim Zidane has labored at his masterpiece, an abstract sculpture that speaks with the voice of the desert lark, and now, puzzlingly and suddenly, he is dead. Yeah, I don't really think too much about my cooking, but I suppose if it's all new, it's now I'm self-conscious about it. Oh, here's what I can do. If I'm looking for new actions to take, let's use the Shapt to make the chickens happy. So we'll feed it a whole pumpkin. Mash it, eat it, hide forbidden documents in it. Feed the beastie. Satisfy this creature's appetite. Food will make a hungry beast or wild one cooperative. So Pro, how much do you know about the new food in this game? And do you want me to give you, as I know you work at a bakery, although I know your job is payroll, did you want me to go over the all the different food that you'll be able to make? Zidane is the main character in Final Fantasy IX, your favorite. Keep hearing the name and forgetting what you're watching. Gotcha. I am going to need to find a place for all of this, so I can't take too much flour, but we got through what I brought in pretty quickly. So maybe one more. Anything else I want from Cater and Hero while I'm looking for it? So we've got dripping flour, milk, potatoes we can get from the sack of vegetables, so I shouldn't get any more of those. Butter, sugar. The Assam tea, there's a small temptation. You know what? I think I'm going to pick up some Assam tea while I'm at it. You're actually so sleepy. You know, reading and looking at the moon and all, so I don't think it will stick, but if you'd like to go over it for others, sure. I'm actually also going to make some coffee in a little bit, so I figure this is a nice little intermission to get everybody ready to go up and get some snacks. So I'll maybe skip the raw ingredients. Let's start in the Hall of Voices. So in the Hall of Voices, we have a baked apple meringue. Harvey Hattington, during his convalescence at the house, was so obsessed with meringuing techniques that he was ultimately banned from the kitchen. We have a stuffed dark marrow. This was a marrow with secrets. Now it's a dish for mystics. The rosehip sponge cake, which I know Oswin made in her last stream. Rosa rugosa, the beach rose, is often regarded as a foreign interloper on European shores, but this cake is a strong argument for our hospitality. Scrambled egg with bacon. Scrambled eggs were the breakfast of empire. In these less hegemonic times, empire is optional, as is bacon. The magnificent roast potatoes. It's the dripping that elevates it. Roast potatoes are a feast for the senses, but the dripping deepens the flavor profile, makes the experience continue through the machinery of the mouth to become a kind of journey. Or just roast potatoes. You really need rosemary for roast potatoes, but fortunately the kitchen garden at Hush House has never been short of rosemary. Crusty bread, which doesn't actually have a description here, but use bread with a knife and mushrooms, ham, pilchards, or other savory things, or add apples and spice for a classic English pudding. And one of my favorite new descriptions, a mushroom meringue. What in the Wolf Divided's most splintered name hath here been wrought? We have the sea pie, once a treat for sailors, hence the name. We've got moli au jus. This has been called moth, but delicious, but perhaps we will all be in the end. A jugged pheasant, the hunter's reward. Floating island, vanilla, custard, and meringue, landscaped and carameled, a Claridge's specialty. Vegetable stew, unexciting, but also unobjectionable. Roast beef, our fathers of old were robust, stout, and strong, and kept open house with good cheer all day long, which made their plump tenants rejoice in this song. Oh, the roast beef of Old England, and Old English roast beef. Henry Fielding, The Grub Street Opera. We have almonds. A stuffed pale marrow. This was a marrow redolent of sorrow. Now it's a dish to comfort the damned. Toffee pudding, decadent in summer, comforting in winter. Fudge, all the bad things doing a good thing. 3 Grail. Blackberry sponge cake, light, sweet sponge cake, and the taste of autumn hedgerows. Plum croutons, one should never make this with plums that are not ripe enough to eat. One is quite serious. Apple charlotte, or possibly charlotta, a classic English pudding of apples stewed with cinnamon and layered with deep, crisp golden bread. Roast pheasant, best when roasted upside down to start, but turned right way up before the end. Apple pie, flaky buttery crust, tart sweet apples with cinnamon and nutmeg. Cold pheasant with grape salad. This was the sort of dish you might expect to find for a late supper after the theater or halfway through a ball, Arbella Boxer. Baked pear meringue. Harvey Hattington, during his convalescence at the house, became obsessed with meringuing techniques. He was known to sneak down to the kitchens and interfere with the cooks in pursuit of this ideal. Of his ideal. We have the Walls of Yeze, a frankly insensitive name that commemorates the inundation of that fabled city. The knot cake, according to ancient pattern. Honey-haunted pumpkin pie. Harvey Haddington, perennially suspicious of the Blumberende kind and their cuckoo honey, nevertheless championed pumpkin pie made with cuckoo's honey as the herald of savor. On we go. Steaming vegetable spring pie, originally a product of Lord Berners' kitchens at Farringdon House, favored by Herbert Percy, the mad boy Berners' companion, who inlaid the floor of his changing room with pennies and built steps up to his swimming pool. Double Harvey Haddington. Actually, 3 mentions of Harvey Haddington. Stuff acrid marrow. This was not a marrow conducive to harmony. Now it's a dish for warriors. Cornish honey cake. Under no circumstances should this ever be confused with Devonshire honey cake, which everyone in Brankrug could instantly identify as the inferior variation. Pumpkin pie. Take a pound of pumpkin and slice it. A handful of thyme, a little rosemary, a sweet marjoram stripped off the stalks, chop them small, then take cinnamon, nutmeg, pepper, and a few cloves, all beaten. Hannah Woolley, the gentlewoman's companion. Fried mushrooms on toast. You can do great things with these with a simple white sauce and black pepper, but sometimes you're just hungry. Madeira cake. In the 18th century, one would have a slice of this in the morning with a glass of Madeira, fortified wine from the Madeira Islands, volcanic yet lush, rugged yet balmy, bright with the calls of sandpipers and firecrests. This is the 20th century. We have afternoon tea now. We don't drink fortified wine at 10 in the morning, no more sandpipers, no more firecrests. But the cake's still good. Almonds. Stargazy pie. We are all in the gutter, but some of us are looking at the stars. Wild, Lady Windermere's fan. More roast potatoes, game chips. Long before fish and chips, these went crunchily with game. Ideally, you'd want bread sauce and breadcrumbs to complete the ensemble, but honestly, it's hard enough not to just stuff these directly into your mouth. A boiled egg, neatly packaged nutrition, pale as December dawn. We do have another Harvey Haddington reference, but I will pass over that for now. Pickled mackerel. Pickling is a kind of afterlife. What comes after afterlife? Pickled mushrooms. You'll learn to like them. Ham and potato bake. Filling and tasty. Pear pie, flaky buttery crust, luscious pears with cinnamon and nutmeg. Onion soup, just enough tang to tantalize. Leek soup, a milder taste than onion soup, but no less warming. Marinated roast beef, but since we have learnt from all vaporing fants to eat their ragousts as well as to dance, we're fed up with nothing but vain complacence. Oh, the roast beef of Old England, and Old English roast beef. Henry Fielding, Grub Street Opera. Mushroom and potato bake. Callers tried out a variation on this as Cucurbit prison fare. It was tasty, but allegedly he was also interested in the connection between the modulation of the taste of mushrooms and the suppression of the crowned growth. Ham and egg casserole. Tasty and filling. King's Luck pie. Thyrza Blake always insisted on calling it the great pie of power to the lasting annoyance of her peers. We apparently have another Stargazy pie here. Ham and cheese toasty, breakfast, lunch, or emergency. Game pie, pheasants or snipe or woodcock or rabbit, and a tasty pastry. Pilchards on toast, triply crunchy. Poached mackerel. We do not poach fish in Brankrug without recalling the turbot crisis of 1786, when Dr. Westcott caught a prodigious turbot and required the kitchen to poach it for him without division. But no vessel of sufficient size could be found to poach it entire. At last they resorted to alchemical assistance. Mackerel, fortunately, requires no such alchemy for its poaching. Kidgary, a wonderfully versatile dish favored for breakfast by the sons of the lark and for supper by the daughters of the owl. And egg croquettes, come for the crunch, stay for the nourishment. And I believe that is the last of the dishes currently in the house. There will be a quiz later. Well, I guess technically I could talk about the teas as well, but I think we're good. Okay, so we have a few things that we want to get done for the rest of the day. It's actually taken me over half the stream to get to to a point where what on... Oh, that's right. Okay, I'm gonna make sure I read this and this. Yeah, it's taken me a long time to get through today, but I am also sort of recovering from some extended time off. So, if you don't mind, I'm going to take a small break just so I can make some coffee, which is an absolutely ludicrous pop. Maybe I won't get coffee. Maybe I'll just make tea. It is 12:30 at night for me, but I do feel like I need a hot beverage and I need to just shake the cobwebs out. So, I will be gone for hopefully just a few minutes, and then we can be back for some more gameplay. Hopefully, gameplay that you all can see and learn from. I will also be happy to do some questions and answers in terms of whether or not, well, basically, if anybody is uncertain about how the game works, now would be a good time to chat about that. Anyways, I am sorry, but I am gonna take a minute here just to get myself straightened out. We'll be back in a minute. All right, thank you everybody for your patience. I have my tea. It's actually some of the leftover secret tea that I had from the broadcast for this game on Steam. So I do want to remember what Just Versed and Gemini 3. I've obviously written that down previously, but I don't have it immediately in front of me. So we'll start with Just Versed. Just first. Now, there's a possible argument that this would give a pattern, but I think that would be more true for The Radical Measure. I think this is the book that was inspired by The Radical Measure. So, Rose back again. I've already mastered this, but I could reread it and perhaps recall a memory. Yeah, let's just let the day pass by for a little bit. There are definitely some other books that I would like to read, but the question is, when's the appropriate time to do some of this? All right, post office. The postmistress keeps the gate to the wider world. In her left hand is the lightning, which is to say the telegraph, and in her right the thunder, which is to say the only telephone in Brandkrug. Before her lies the cash register, which accepteth the greater currency and returneth its lesser children. So provide money equal to the cost, so we just need 27 pence. This is actually probably one of the less costly Cater and Hero orders that I've done. Complete the order. The postmistress signs and seals the order, places it in the place that stamped orders are properly placed. Wait 3 days, she commands. So probably want to rearrange the currency a bit. My God! I'm so glad we did this. All right. I suppose I could pour the tea and all of that, but we'll leave that aside. Okay, I'm really running out of running out of uses for wood, but I do like having wood, so keep the Hawthorn blank. Oh, can't put that on the bridge yet. And Ava's locks. These are always helpful for getting more Solomon's preparation, which I don't recall. Do I have more winter? No. Well, technically here. Oh no, that's not. Okay, currently no use for winter. Good to know. So Ava's locks can go... Do I even have any space down here? Thought this might work. Oh dear. That'll do. Alright, so we did say that we were going to use some of these for other other collections. So what we'll do here, we'll still use the Whist. I'll still use Rhyme and Remembrance here. What has the sea seeded today? But we did also want to make sure that we gave Dr. Adim his invitation. So let's go to the Vagabond desk. An elegant relic repurposed by Green for his small and secret war. So here we'll use the Inks of Power, which for some reason got messed up. Okay, so remembering that we want to invite Ibn al-Adim, but to do so we need... Actually, I don't think we've added him to the list yet. We need 7, so I add the Fet to do so. There we go. Request Ibn al-Adim's presence. I have enough here to craft a letter inviting al-Adim to Brandkrug. Now, one of the options, other options that I have would be to do something like use one of these memories instead of the FET. But I'm at the point here, we're close to the end of the day, that having this extra FET isn't necessarily going to, I'm not going to really use it for the thing that I want to use it for. So getting a letter for the Alipine seems to be a good call. We are starting to run out of time though, so I haven't really been making use of this, this cooking station. I'll have 2 batter to play with, so I do want to at least try and make some new things if I can. Yeah, let's wait the 3.2 seconds to see what happens. The Queen's Turn, a 16th century translation of the Barrowchild's account of Lagia's turn, when Lagia, the queen unsated, was offered the opportunity to enter the service of the Hours of the Triple Knot, as long as she repudiated her brother-lover Antaios. Lagia accepts, setting aside the arts the low red sun associated with Antaios. She bargains, however, for freedom for her daughters. The Hours of the Triple Knot accept casually, knowing that Lagia has devoured her daughters, but wily Lagia has decided in the secret hollow of her heart that she will adopt any who ask if they can prove their fierceness. The traditions described here, the ones generally described as hill and hollow, are associated with Lagia before her turn, but now that she is a name of the Red Grail, they might also be safely used before an altar of the Triple Knot. So this should allow me to level up Edict's Liminal. We're going to do that right now. So take Edict's Liminal. We'll take the Weaving and Not Working. Now we can do this because it's Moth. This is one of the things that can become quite challenging in a game like Cultist Simulator or Book of Hours, is that there are perfectly reasonable assumptions that you can make, and the game will give you sort of, when you mouse over, it'll give you little hints about things that you can put in. Sometimes mouse over, sometimes click. But it does actually help not just to read the descriptions of things, but also to take a look at the instructions that it's giving you. So for instance, what does it require to level up a skill? Well, first of all, you need to put it in the consider verb. It'll tell you if you try to, like, so an example here would be if I took Weaving and Not Working, I can't do anything with this on its own. Perhaps I wanted to consider a matching skill so I could increase it, right? So that'll give you the guidance in terms of saying, okay, it looks like you want to level this thing up, just put the existing skill in. So here we have it, Edict's Liminal. What do I need to be able to level this up? Perfectly reasonable assumption would be, oh, okay, I take the lesson. But then I know some people will take the lessons and put those in the memory slots because lessons do count as memories. So one of the ways that you can avoid doing that is just to sort of take a look at the instructions. So in this case, essential, to go in this slot, an object must match at least one of these. So read more. Yeah, well, I mean, the game's instructions say read everything, but I mean that in the most literal sense possible, because, of course, this game also has things that when you read them the first time... No. I'm speaking in general, Oswin. Actually, like I said, I really did enjoy your stream where you just read books all time. I thought it was really interesting to see you go through the lore of the game and sort of talk about the impressions that you were getting from reading a book potentially for the first time. But in this case here, right, so essential, you have to have an element of the soul. This will not progress if you don't have an element of the soul. So you know that the number of things that you can sort of commit is limited to things that are in this this window. However, required is a different story. To go in the slot, an object must match at least one of these, right? So the distinction here is there is no element of the soul that has both Knock and Moth. So if you had to satisfy both of these things, it would be impossible. As it is, I'm happy enough to use the Shapt. So lesson, same idea, right? This has to have the lesson aspect. There is no other option in this case here, which is why we have Weaving and Not Working. But one of the things that may not be as obvious is, for the same reason that we can put the Shapt in here, we are under no obligation to put the Edict's Liminal lesson inside, right? We can put Weaving and Not Working inside of it. Because again, the required slot only says one of the two. And by the same token, right, the weird one is that if you think about it, people are able to figure this out for memories all the time. Like, nobody would question me putting Impulse, Occult, Scrap, and Salt. And usually it's because, you know, if you click, you'll see the highlight. The funny thing is that the same logic technically applies for the lessons, and yet for a really long time, And I played this way. Like, this is, if anybody's being called out, it's me. I'd usually go for lessons to match the Edict's Liminal because it was just more convenient for me. But in this case here, when I didn't know the difference, I would fall into the same trap, despite the fact that the logic that makes all of these work also applies to the lessons. So it's why the reading really works. Although I can understand the pressure, particularly in terms of streaming, right? Like, for my own part, I only have my voice, so I can get away with reading everything. But I know in some cases it can feel like if you're just sitting and reading things that it's not as exciting. The thing is that this game is exciting because of its reading, right? There's not many games where you really get to celebrate reading and everything that comes out of it. So, all right, enough selling. I like this game, but we will commit the lesson and we will talk to a chicken. All right, we've made the batter an ingredient for a higher purpose. Add dripping for something horrifyingly tasty, or use with a knife and onions. Let's see what is horrifyingly tasty. Well, this has got to be the Yorkshire pudding. Okay, add dripping for something horrifyingly tasty, but I guess we would have to use the kitchen bowls then? Yeah, you make Yorkshire pudding a dish with heart and nectar. I am curious just to see if adding any of the other options... Nope. Okay. Definitely going to make a Yorkshire pudding. I am slightly curious about other... Actually, you know what? I know this isn't the most exciting choice, but I am going to add the kitchen bowls, and I'm actually just going to try mixing a few other things that are not a knife and onions. I'm not expecting miracles, but I am mildly curious to see if... Like, battered grapes does not sound like a good idea. But you never know. Oops. Okay. So there wasn't that much for me to do, but, well, I guess the jams are also an option. Actually, I'm slightly curious. If we were to add that with bread, that might make French toast. No. Okay, fair enough. We will make the Yorkshire pudding then. And I don't yet have onions, but we'll do that with the consider verb in a minute. I don't think I have any more flour, although if there's only 2 things for me to make with the batter, maybe I don't need to worry so much about that. Now I just need to post it. So we've got all of our guests for the salon. Now it will be a bit of a puzzle in terms of finding out what Yvette needs, but like we're gonna... Oh, I did a slight cheat for myself. So I was slightly curious about cooking, and I didn't want to give myself all the recipes, but I was curious in terms of just how much there was. Holy crap, I have not even begun to cook. There's a lot, and I'm actually kind of curious. So the one thing that I find kind of interesting, I think from Cultist Simulator, let him cook. For Cultist Simulator, oh, you know what? I didn't try batter and fruit. Not that I think that's going to make the difference, but I guess I can also kind of get away and do spices and savors. Um, but yeah, so back from the Cultist Simulator days, I've always felt a bit resistant to trying to like just kind of brute forcing things. Like I've done it for recipes before, but I've never felt that it's the most exciting way to play, because in Cultist Simulator you could usually solve things by reading the books, and you're kind of guaranteed to see every book. In this game you read a lot of books, but you're probably not going to read every single one of them. Sorry, just 1 second. But sorry, I really needed to get that out of the way. But yeah, as far as cooking is concerned, it definitely gives you little hints, but there are things that I very clearly have learned not just by following the directions. So the King's Luck pie would be an example, right? King's Luck pie would be an example of something that you can get from the description. King's Luck pie, a beef pie with pears and cinnamon and secret ingredients, is the traditional dish of the house. It was first cooked, they say, for King Henry, when, in great secrecy, on St. Piran's Day, he came to Cornwall seeking the king's metal, tin, to restore his alloy. It probably didn't happen, but the pie did. Now, the game does actually give you a direct recipe for this from one of the precursor ingredients. But what I find interesting is there's one other thing that I can try. If the onions work, I wonder what happens with the mushrooms. But yeah, I can't really think of another way that you would learn how to make stuff for cooking in the game if they're not the description of something else. So like what I mean by this would be almonds add sugar and spice to make jumble, which I'm just trying to remember if I've got any of those. I thought I had one of everything, but maybe I'm missing the jumble. Or I guess the mackerel wouldn't have one, but oh, sugar. Cream it with butter in a mixing bowl, add almonds and spices for jumble, or with an egg, a bowl, and care, you can make meringue, right? So these are all sort of instructions that the gamer's giving you. But so far as I can tell, you can't read books, and it will sort of give you a hint in terms of how the cooking, how the different dishes are made. I think you kind of need to experiment. So it's fine, but I was actually quite surprised at how far behind I am in terms of just getting dishes. So, all right, more eggs. Offer this beast my company. Who knows? Perhaps it will offer something in return. I deserved a little quiet time. Now, this isn't bad because I need, like, having the extra core lets me do gardening and such. But I did say that I was running out of elements of the soul to work with. I'm slightly worried. No, 20 seconds we should be fine. I'm definitely going to have more flowers than I know what to do with. An afternoon spent profitably, reading newspapers to the curious, writing affectionate letters for the lonely, steering farmers to the requirements of the Ministry of Agriculture. We're definitely going to do... I'm just going to fire off the... Oh dear. I forgot to use the fet. Okay, we can do that now. Path and Pilgrim. So I think the core I'll be good to do a little more gardening. But the metal, the Fost, and the Whist I'm going to have to find things to do in the kitchen. right, we've got our Mazarine Fife. This is good because we're going to be able to do quite a bit more with it. I also think I'm going to have to clear out the music room. So as cool as the Evening Isles coffee is, I think I'm going to have to put that in the map room. Did that become a bridge fife? No, here it is. With Keeper level Sky, a Mazarine Fife is an essential tool to conjure a wind in waiting. So I'll just keep that here. So I'd say that was a fairly good use of the storm, incidentally. So the Mazarine Fife gives us 3 sky. So the storm is 4 sky, 4 heart. If I need it for sky, I can now use this at basically any desk to get an additional 3 sky. So it's technically 1 less, but I can use it. It's a renewable high sky tool. Oop, and the skill is now level 4. Its power aspects have also increased. All right. So I'm going to grab some onions because let's do metal for that. Do not consume it. Identify as onions. These are onions. Wonderful. I actually really like the description. So if for each craftable that you choose here, you've got identify as a marrow. Promising. These are potatoes. Spectacular. This is a pumpkin. Marvelous. These are onions. Wonderful. These are leeks. Excellent. All right. Few flowers flourish in the depths of winter. Blue Crown is one of those few. Like I said, it's going to be a bit of a challenge trying to figure out where to put the Blue Crown. You know what? Bridge. Or eventually bridge. And Just Verse, a rare surviving copy of Christopher Allopoly's notoriously unsuccessful volume of experimental poetry published in 1912. Allopoly is clearly more interested in the occult than the aesthetic aspects of the work. By most measures, the rhymes are contrived, the meter inconsistent, the imagery banal. Still, even the worst verses have a compelling quality, and I find myself drumming my fingers on the desk to accompany their rhythms. In an afterword, Allopoly discusses mnemonic holometabole, by which he seems to mean a sort of crafting process where memories, when fed into a preliminal meter technique in the presence of enough knock or rose, can blossom and fissure into more potent versions of themselves. So as predicted, that was a pattern. Oop. We are out of space for patterns. But I suspect this will eventually be... This is going to get a little awkward for a while, but... Shucks. Okay, that's a start. We did also clear out the oh, that's right. I didn't have a home for the Matters and Deeds of Serpents. Okay. So eventually the plan's going to be that both of these shells will take my impulses. But we're not quite at that point yet. So I do want to read the Geminiad, and there's nothing really stopping me from doing it. I just wanted to make sure I didn't waste the I didn't want to waste the memories. So we need Fusine to read this. I've already mastered this, but I could reread it and perhaps recall a memory. Okay, and I still feel like I should be doing more with my Elements of the Soul, but we need 2.4 seconds to get some onions. And I might as well... Actually, I can cheat a little bit because we have, well, both Blue Crown and Ava's locks. I figure I can take the Whist, the Quenchings and Quellings. Actually, technically I don't even need the Whist, but we do need an Element of the Soul, so we'll make some... Solomon's Preparation, but I might just make an ink. Now we'll make the Solomon's Preparation. We'll do the next step later. Muddle and mix a wintry preparation. Okay, from there we'll get a replacement Blue Crown. And then when I want to make occult onion rings. Basket of onions, the prima materia of cooking. This may be why the cosmos is shaped so like an onion. So now I'll take my Faust, batter, onions. I don't think the kitchen bowls does it. Yeah. Make onion rings. Okay, so I'm gonna... Now that we have a little bit more of an idea about how that works, I'm just going to try one more trial on... Yeah, so apples, pears. Not surprising that those wouldn't do it. And I can't imagine how pumpkins would be relevant here. Okay. Dish with edge, grail, heart, and nectar. And of course now we've used up all our Elements of the Soul for the day. So that sounds the signal that there's a minute left in the day. Also, I can bring Morgan's card into the Black Book. For what you might call an occult correspondence. So rather than read the newspaper, I can just get the occult scrap from adding Legion. All right, Yorkshire pudding, eggy, creamy, crispy, and the eternal supporting character in a Sunday roast. To the similarly eternal confusion of English speakers who are not British, Yorkshire pudding is not sweet and cannot be served for the pudding course. So this is a 2 heart, 1 nectar side dish. I'm going to add it to my spreadsheet. Okay, we gotta put you on a shelf somewhere. No worries, bro. I'm sure Oswin is confused by why I did that, but I at least thought it was funny, and I am glad that somebody has... You are Googling Dare's Truth for Fear Pong. Is this one of these things that you hallucinate about when it's late at night, bro, and you haven't had any sleep because you were up watching a supermoon? Playing Magic the Gathering, punching holes in your Black Lotus cards. And now it suggests a meal would be welcome. Okay, so yeah, we haven't really got a whole lot done on this stream, but I do think we're in a decent shape. I think I'll probably start inviting people for the Salom tomorrow, actually. And for, I think when it comes to lessons, it's, yeah, when it comes to lessons, I think we'll just kind of push ahead with the books that we already have. Although, like I said, we'll probably want to. Oh yeah, actually, I should probably want to see what I can read with Inks of Power first, because I did forget that I had a higher level Rose skill. I don't think it'll be enough for us to make progress. I think the Radical Measure is our best bet. So if we take Fet and Inks of Power, that's 7. No, actually, we just have enough. That's why I was holding on to the Confounding Parable. Curses. All right. It is beer pong with a dare or truth under each cup. Every time an opponent scores on you, you do the dare or truth under the cup they scored on. That sounds like a game only for attractive people, and why I am unfamiliar with it. All right, I am going to be a little cheesy and take advantage of the bridge again. I'm familiar with beer pong. I'm just not familiar with Dare's truth for fear pong. Unless fear was an autocorrect. The Geminiad, Volume 3, a fragile manuscript illuminated with the twin shapes of sad and luminous beauty and with all the phases of the moon. It might be as old as the 7th century, but the language Fusine is much older. Coral decorates its cover, and its page edges are sharp enough to slash a throat. These pages outline the nature and the doctrines of an hour that demands the union of what has been separated. An hour that is sought at the water's edge and beneath the moon, the witch and sister. The language is elusive, enigmatic, intricate. It'll take some untangling. The 3rd volume of the Geminiad reminds us that the witch and sister has been known to manifest as the sister and witch, and that this face may heal while the other face is always hungry. It implies connections between the witch and sister and the hours of the wood, especially the secret keeper called the Velvet, but it is ambiguous on whether the witch and sister is a wood hour proper, and it speaks at length about the sadness of the two who are one, the sadness that remains from their time as flesh. Ah, fair enough. All right. Understood. Ah, Beguiling Melody. All right. So I'm actually going to need to run off again for a minute. I will try not to make that long, but I just don't think I'm going to be able to get over being roasted over The Sims like that. So I need a moment to compose myself. But yeah, I'll try not to make this a long one, but I do just need to step away from the keys for a couple minutes. I will be back as soon as I can. I am so sorry. Thank you for pointing that out, Prosciutto Fist. I was muted the entire time. So I was actually going to say, I was going to try and do something fun and use up one of the preparations, but we actually have 5. So thank you for the correction. All right, so I'm not 100% comfortable inviting everybody to the salon quite yet, because I could have committed a few more elements of the soul to the Tree of Wisdoms, but honestly, at this point, let's just kind of see where this all goes. Now, I can actually prepare for Yvette Southey's arrival. So in this case, from the card, we see, first of all, playwright, philologist, psychoanalyst, as happy with questions as with answers. And she wants... Oh, Yvette will eat or drink anything. She doesn't like to make a fuss. So that has to be in there so that you can start off right away with... that's got to be so that you can basically invite Yvette and the Kills, or, you know, whatever villager you want. Okay, well, that's good news for us. So based on what we see here, again, I'm just going to double check the invitation. So if I get this correct, Adim will want scale, which we get from the boiled egg. Aaron Peel will want moon, which we get from the stargazy pie. Dagmar will want knock, which we get from the game chips. And Olympi will want forge, which theoretically would need to get... Okay, yep, no, the baked meringue has that as well. So I guess that leaves the roast potatoes for Yvette. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah. Okay. On to the next part. We're going to make some drinks. So Dawn Lion coffee for Ibn Aladim. So appropriately pour out. Aaron Peel can enjoy some water. Pour out. Dagmar would like the second flush Assam. It's probably just as easy for me to take the one upstairs and add it down here. I'd kind of like to try and space it all, but at this point I'm just going to cram it all on the table. What was the for Honey Scar Jasmine tea? I actually don't know if I have a place to serve this anymore. Yeah, oh no, hang on, we do, so. I'll also probably want to prepare another Honey Scar Jasmine. So serve appropriately, pour out. That's not a hard one for us to make. We've got more than enough whisk, so I'll just grab the jasmine here. Make Honey Scar tea, a hot drink with forge, nectar, and rose. And Dr. Southey needs a drink as well. I don't want to be a cheapskate, but honestly, another glass of water would not be a terrible choice here. Okay, that should cover the guests unless I've written down their details wrong. So I'm gonna make Ibn Aladim the first, or well, the next one on the list. Pour it out. There we go. Now I'm going to be a little cheesy here and look at my achievements because I believe there is one food and drink. Well, I am trying to invite as many people as I can as well. So, just trying to remember the... Right, it was lunch that I haven't done yet. Which is a little inconvenient timing-wise, but I will settle for... I'll settle for it just because it seems more interesting. Okay, Dr. Ibn al-Adim wants... prefers scale food, won't touch intoxicating drink. So I think this basically means any drink will do. But we've already made the coffee, so that's fine. Alright, we should know Olympe Bichet's preferences. This is a water for me. I would kind of like to drag up some more water, but again, we're going to be doing the salon, so I want to make sure that everything's like ready to go. Okay, Madame Bichet, as expected, prefers forge food and drink. 2 more invitations. Stamp, envelope, send. The postmistress examines the letter and deems it sufficient. It'll go with the next post, she assures me. Daymare wants knock, food and drink. And finally, Oswin's favorite, Dr. Peel. He's a real doctor. Aaron prefers moon, food, and drink. Pro, do you have a favorite character yet? And why is it Hokobal de Posend? Alright, so we need to wait a minute for everybody to arrive, but that's fine because, presumably lunch happens like in the middle of the day, so... An afternoon spent profitably, reading newspapers to the curious, writing affectionate letters for the lonely, steering farmers to the requirements of the Ministry of Agriculture. Now, I cannot see a situation in which we're going to need, like, more than 6 whist, but I am going to renew it just so I can feel comfortable. It is winter and storms have tightened the seas. I am sitting before the fire in the sweet bones with a beef and potato pasty in one hand and a hot ale posset in the other. There's the Honey Scar tea. That's the replacement for the one that we just poured out. All right, Yvette has arrived. Yeah, no worries. I don't take attendance. I'm just curious. You do? I'm using the bridge more. This is your bad influence. All right, let's talk about who we're inviting, because there's also some detail. I'm actually I'm gonna have some questions for you, Oswin, on this. But so, Dr. Yvette Southey, playwright, philologist, psychoanalyst, as happy with questions as with answers. Dr. Ibn al-Adim, the Alapine, historian, doctor, and above all, traveler. The good doctor has been associated with all but one of the libraries of the Watchman's Tree. He was even secretary nunciant of Hush House for a little while, but he has never been on good terms with the Suppression Bureau. Oh, right, he's not inspired. Never mind. We have Mademoiselle Olympie Bichet, essayist, illustrator, critic, editor of the Karashim Review. Daymare, Grafin Federica Dagmar Sophia Teresa Helena Begina von Nagelsberg, if you prefer. She doesn't. And Dr. Aaron Peel, exile, riddlemonger, thunderskin devotee, I'd rather say confidant, impeccably dressed, but always in dark clothing so the stains don't show. Dark the dressings, too, at his ankles and his wrists. I won't take a seat. It's kind of you to offer. It would be unkind of me to accept. So what's going on here, Oswin? What is your BFF up to? Why is it dark? Why is it unkind for him to sit down? Please do not feel put on the spot if you don't want to answer that, but I know you've been sort of pulling on the thread for Dr. Aaron Peel, and I'm curious if you have any ideas as to the nature of this person. Okay, so I'm not just here for... I'm actually going to be a little careful, so... I don't think I'll be messing this up, but we did have a further story. So we have the dappled rose. What was the meaning of the black and white flower that grew in the deep desert? So here we have Dr. Adim. Did Dr. Aladim find the piebald garden in the ruins of Maya? We have Aaron. Aaron spoke of a coming time when flowers find moths and not the other way around. Is he ready to make any more sense? Madame Bichet, did Olympie learn anything more of the vagabond's garden in Maya, where once the moth came at night? And Daymare. Dagmar spoke of her inclination to seek the dappled rose in Maya. Did she go? What a mood. Is he ready to make any more sense? Does this remind you of a certain chatter and Discord truth teller? Take haver? This is a tricky one for me. So I believe when I click on one of these people, I'm going to carry on. So there's a small... I'll just clarify something here. I think there was a Thought Puncher. Yeah, Thought Puncher's a good one. Thinkfluencer. Thought leader. So, for those of you not familiar with House of Light, this was added in the new expansion. The Curia of the Isle is long gone. Once it helped preserve a little knowledge and a kind of safety here in Braunkrug and established the position of librarian. Rowena, secretary persistent of the Curia, long complex entity who has long protected Hush House, is both exhausted and compromised, and so it is time for the librarian to return the favor and establish a successor to the Curia. Help visitors pursue their goals and develop their agendas. When you found 6 suitable candidates inspired by agendas, you can suggest that they found an organization that's a worthy successor to the Curia of the Isle. That's just how the game works, Sylvia. It's one of these... So I do know that there is a... oh yeah, actually there's a couple of things that I wanted to point out. So let me take a second to bring up a browser. You were referring to yourself. Ugh. All right, everybody, please make sure that you not only follow Prosciutto Fist, but make sure that when she has a nice big, batch of people watching her, that everybody calls her a thought puncher and never stops calling her a thought puncher. Okay, so one of the things that you can do in terms... So one of the big features of House of Light is to found the Lighthouse Institute and sort of push the story of Hush House and push the story of the world a bit further. And part of that job involves the various roles. So we've got a few options for treasurer. The treasurer would be responsible for the Institute's finances. This would be a good excuse to ask for an initial endowment, so they should be wealthy. So Fraser Strathcoyne, Princess Coquille Amiragibi, and Daymare are all potential candidates for treasurer. Oh, sorry. Well, that's fine. I'll call you a Thought Puncher anyway. Thought Puncher. Secretary Salvant. The Secretary Salvant would lead the Institute's healing and restoration efforts. Now, we have inspired Friar Stanislav John Schaller, but we also have Peter Ignatius Isenfekri as options for the Secretary Salvant. For the Secretary Vigilant, the Secretary Vigilant would ensure the Institute's safety. Jaime Azida Bukhara and Lieutenant Arthur Thomas Moore. Now, we're probably on our way to getting in Arthur Thomas Moore's good graces, or possibly Echidna's. Then there's the Secretary Enigmatic. So the Secretary Enigmatic would conceal or reveal the Institute's secrets. Serena Blackwood, Corso Reverte, or Yvette Southey, who is here. Not yet inspired. Secretary Nunciant would communicate and negotiate with other organizations, so Mademoiselle Olympe Bichet, Dr. Ibn Aladim, and Zachary Wakefield. I believe both of these would be candidates. So, with that in mind, the people who could potentially be turned into new I put it like members of the members of the Lighthouse Institute. I've got 4 of them, and in order to inspire them, I need to pick one of the... Not Peel, no. Now, this may be... I'm not 100% sure from memory, Oswin, because I've been playing this save longer than the other ones. Not all of the potential candidates are listed here. I know at least I'm pretty sure this is the case. I'm fairly sure I have the early version of the Lighthouse Institute that didn't have everything implemented during the beta, and I may need to do something to refresh the Lighthouse Institute. But again, I kind of wanted to pursue this save as long as I could anyway. Anyway, sorry, to Selpheia's point though. So yeah, anyway, so out of these 4, I'm gonna, or sorry, 3 of these 4 can potentially become inspired and a member of the Lighthouse Institute. Now, there's a couple things I wanted to talk about. So this is part of the interview that I did with the developers of this game. I haven't uploaded it yet, but I really should get around to that. Let me see. So there's a cognitive bias, I guess, or maybe it's just an illusion. I'm not quite sure what it is, but what Selphea is describing. So the back for Cultist Simulator, I think the Weather Factory, specifically Alexis Kennedy, one of the co-founders, sort of coined this idea of I think it was apophenic, or maybe apophenian. I think it was apophenic design. So what is apophenia? So basically apophenia is where you you kind of make a connection that isn't necessarily there. And it's a very nice feature that we have as human beings. It's this ability to sort of connect the dots, and in a negative sense, it's the sort of thing that causes people to like go down conspiracy rabbit holes. But to a certain extent, it also winds up giving us, like, it's one of the things that really makes fiction work, and specifically games like Cultist Simulator work. And if you hear these developers talk about what they do at any length, you really do get to appreciate how much they think about sort of psychology and what the player is thinking and experiencing. And it's one of the reasons why I think these games work. Like, they're well done, and they create these worlds in which you sort of like to have hunches and intuitions, and to a certain extent this is a strength of the writing, and there's just some sort of natural talents that they have that just work really well. But I do also think a lot of this is the result of some very specific thinking about how people will be engaging with the work that they're doing. Um, and again, I'm not trying to imply that um, there's that, like, you, if you just sit down and grind it out, you're going to come up with exactly Book of Hours. Like, I think there's probably a certain type of world experience and a set of interests that are driving these games to be the way that they are. But I do think if you understand these, you understand sort of the tools with which you can make people feel certain things. And what was really interesting to me, actually, I will say, I believe this actually came up during the Cultist Simulator interview, but we were talking, and I had always thought that this was an experiment by Pudovkin, and it turns out that this is actually the Kuleshov experiment, and Pudovkin tried to take credit for it. But basically, this is, so the Soviets really pushed this theory of montage, and I imagine that there's probably sort of doctrinal, for lack of a better term, reasons for this. If you could just give me a second, I need to clean my glasses. So, if any of you've had to read Eisenstein, or maybe you took like a film theory class or something like that, you'll be sort of familiar with the theory of montage, and I have to imagine that this sort of fits well with this idea of a dialectic. You know, you have your thesis, you have your antithesis, and then you have synthesis, the combining of the two. And to a certain extent, montage sort of fits well in this framework. But what you get with montage is essentially you have one image, and then you have another image, and it is the juxtaposition of these two images that creates meaning. And so the Kuleshov experiment was essentially they took an actor, and this actor is just looking off camera. There's absolutely nothing that's really being intentionally conveyed by this shot. It's the same shot in each of the cases. But what they then did was that they would take that shot and they would follow it up, and one, it would be sort of a bowl of soup, and you get this meaning of hunger. Or you see a coffin, and it's like, oh, okay, this is, sadness or mourning. A woman, it's like, okay, this is lustful, he's staring at her. And again, the first image doesn't necessarily change. It's the second image that is creating that meaning. And this was actually a very productive line of thinking. It's something that I think to a certain extent you can still sort of apply today in terms of understanding and creating films. Now, again, like probably the really famous example that people will think of for this one would be the Odessa steps in the battleship Potemkin. And that, I mean, this has been both referenced and lampooned. I mean, even these references are getting kind of old now, but like there's an old Kevin Costner movie called The Untouchables, and that has a very famous sort of gunfight, which basically is, some might say, an homage to the Odessa Steps, others might say it's a ripoff. I'm not actually quite sure how I feel one way or the other about it. But one of my favorites actually is that there's a Leslie Nielsen movie, The Naked Gun, which parodies the Untouchables sequence, and so by extension the Odessa Steps. It is hilarious. Like they did an amazingly good job of completely sending that up. But in any case, where I wanted to go with this, like the idea, apophenia is essentially what allows that theory of film to work. And again, you don't have to be a Soviet filmmaker, and if you do it, if you follow the Battleship Potemkin, it's going to be sort of an old-fashioned way of doing it. It will certainly look a bit, I don't want to say hokey, but like it's one of these things where, there has been development since then, but it can still be a very effective way of thinking of film and how you are going to tell a particular story, or how these movies work. And there's other versions of this too, where I think Wim Wenders gave this story where he was trying to make an experimental film. You know, he's just kind of doing these shots around Germany, and then he's shooting like this train or subway station or something like that, and out of nowhere some guy just comes like running across a platform, jumps over the tracks, jumps over the second set of tracks, and just runs away. And like, to him, he basically figured, I think probably like the idea was that he would use all of the shots no matter what happened. And for him, his version of events is that basically he knew he could not make that movie anymore, because as soon as somebody sees that, they're going to expect it's the main character. It could be an hour into the film, but now people are going to expect that there's going to be something that happens with that. You know, they've just been introduced to the main character, and there's going to be some explanation in terms of what's going on. So, again, apophenia, our tendency to make connections where they may not necessarily be there. And it's one of these things that allows us to appreciate stories and appreciate the presentation of stories that we have. Now, to Selfea's comment about Red William, the Battleship Potemkin reference has blasted you back to your film theory class taking notes. I can't see it in the dark on movies with subtitles. I completely forgot you took a film theory class, Pro. I hope I did a good enough job. Have you read In the Blink of an Eye or The Conversations with Walter Murch by any chance? Andrei Tarkovsky actually also has a book on film. I don't know if you had to do any of his. Anyways, but what Selfea was talking about. So I think this would probably be an example of the frequency illusion, which was originally introduced to me as the Baader-Meinhof phenomenon. So this one I'll read on Wikipedia. The frequency illusion is cognitive bias in which a person notices a specific concept, word, or product more frequently after recently becoming aware of it. The name Baader-Meinhof phenomenon was coined in 1994 by Terry Mullen in a letter to the St. Paul Pioneer Press. The letter describes how, after mentioning the name of the German terrorist group Baader-Meinhof once, he kept noticing it. This led to other readers sharing their own experiences of the phenomenon, leading it to gain recognition. It was not until 2005 when Stanford linguistics professor Arnold Zwicky wrote about this effect on his blog, and the name frequency illusion was coined. Don't believe you have mentioned it. I took it in the freshman year of college, which was, Jesus Christ, 8 years ago. Are you even allowed to play video games at that point? Yeah, I'd love to know some of the stuff that you covered in that. I don't really know what people learn in film theory. It's a whole lot of films to have theories about. So yeah, anyways, it's one of these things where, I mean, it's actually rather good for sort of trying to hook people into certain things in Book of Hours, which is as soon as you introduce a few concepts, it's very likely that they will suddenly seem like they're everywhere. But also, if you know the game, sometimes you can point people towards a particular outcome. But I did want to point out one last observation. Now, people who've played Cultist Simulator will already know this, but I wanted to point this out. So, Dr. Ibn al-Adin, the Alapine, historian, doctor, and above all, traveler. The good doctor has been associated with all but one of the libraries of the Watchman's Tree, and I'm assuming that one's not the historian, but I'm not sure. He was even Secretary Nunciant of Hush House for a little while, but he has never been on good terms with the Suppression Bureau. So you're like, okay, Ibn al-Adin, neat character, you know, Weather Factory just comes up with interesting characters and ideas. But, as is often the case with this game, if you search some of this stuff, turns out it has its basis in reality. Ibn al-Adin, Kamal al-Din Abu Qasim Umar ibn Ahmed ibn Hibat Allah ibn al-Adin, 1192 to 1262, was an Arab biographer and historian from Aleppo. He is best known for his work, Bughiyat al-Talab fi Tariq Kalab, Everything Desirable About the History of Aleppo, a multi-volume collection of biographies of famous men from Aleppo, introduced with a volume on the geography and traditions of the region. It is saved in part in manuscripts in the library of Sultan Ahmed III in the Topaki Palace. He also published a chronicle version of the work, Zubdat al-Halab fi Tariq Halab, The Cream of the History of Aleppo, a copy which reached the library of Jean-Baptiste Colbert. I'm assuming this is Louis XIV's minister. Yes. And then the Bibliothèque Nationale de France, and sections of which were published with Latin translation by Georg Freytag in 1819. His historical sources are various, some oral and some written, and two of the more famous are Usama ibn Munkid and Ibn al-Khalasini, who was in 1952. Another work is a guide for the making of perfumes, Kitab al-Wuslat, Iya al-Habib fi Wasif al-Tiabat wal-Tib. Again, not good at pronunciation. He is an important source of knowledge on the Syrian assassins, first analyzed by Sylvester de Stacy. Numerous Ayyubid rulers entrusted Ibn al-Adim as a diplomatic messenger. On his last mission, in 1260, he was sent to Egypt seeking military assistance against the Mongols. So certainly this is only one of these references, but it is fair to say, so in the case of the histories and such, there are cases where you will have contradictory histories mentioned. So, in this game, there's a reference to a restoration in the 1930s, which clearly didn't happen in England. There is a story of Alexander turning away at Issus and not fighting Darius. But even little details like some of the characters who you'd assume would just be some creation by Weather Factory actually do have their basis in history. So a reason to check things out, I guess. All right, let's check my options again. So what was the meaning of the black and white flower that grew in the deep desert? Did Aladim find the piebald garden in the ruins of Maya? Aaron Peel. Aaron spoke of a coming time when flowers find moths and not the other way around. Is he ready to make any more sense? Daymare. Dagmar spoke of her inclination to seek the dappled rose in Maya. Did she go? And Olympi. Did Olympi learn anything more of the vagabond's garden in Maya, where once the moth came at night? So the tricky part here is I am trying to decide between Olympi and Ibn al-Adim. Both of I'm slightly more inclined towards the Vagabond's Garden, but I'm also slightly more inclined to having Ibn al-Adim as Secretary Nunciate. Right, we're continuing. The Egg of the Dune. The vagabond, along with two other hours, proposes to challenge Calyptra with a flower that is neither black nor white. To that end, she has called on an old alliance with the Carapace Cross. Ask Aladim, did Aladim find the piebald garden in the ruins of Maya? I did, and to my great surprise, it is not empty. The Gladerflog kind have descended from their slumbers and have made their home in the ruins of Maya. My patroness has charged me with a mission concerning them. Oh, we get to see the... Okay, cool. So, let's see here. Okay, no, so we've committed to the Egg of the Dune, so who can we help? So we can assist Aladim. Dappled roses are a weapon against Calyptra, a weapon made for the Vagabond and her allies among the Hours. Now the Vagabond is calling on old alliances to strengthen her hand. Where his patroness goes, Aladim must follow. It worries me greatly, librarian, descent among the hours, alliances with those who came before us. But she has been good to me, and I am loyal. I will help her recruit the Gladerflog kind to tend her gardens. Please, share with me whatever material you might have concerning Maya. Okay, so alternatively we can help Aaron Peel. Assist Aaron. Dappled roses are a weapon against Calyptra, a weapon made for the Vagabond and her allies against the Hours. Now the Vagabond is calling on old alliances to strengthen her hand. Aaron is clearly enjoying the excitement. So if I continue here... No, no, no. Where, librarian, is the yes, yes, yes? Huh. So it's not sharing anything about what to do there. That's really interesting. Daymare. This is Dagmar. Dappled roses are a weapon against Calyptra, a weapon made for the Vagabond and her allies among the Hours. Now the Vagabond is calling on old alliances to strengthen her hand. Dagmar finds it all rather smashing. Between you and me, Libsy, I've always admired the Vagabond. Doesn't take no for an answer, and makes her own way wherever she wants to be. Well, the Carapace Cross out in the ruins and Maya aren't signed up to the Vagabond's plan just yet. I'm hoping I can nudge them. Just need to gin up a bit on Maya first. What do you have? And Madame Shea. Dappled roses are a weapon against Calyptra, a weapon made for the Vagabond and her allies among the Hours. Now the Vagabond is calling on old alliances to strengthen her hand. Olympi would happily see Calyptra weakened, but the alliance with the Carapace Cross has her worried. The Vagabond is one of the Hours' friendliest to humankind. If she recruits the Cross as her weapons, if she has less use for us, I fear she may become less kindly inclined to us. I would like to discourage this alliance, librarian. Please give me everything you have on Maya. Now, I actually did sort of make a decision along these lines with Schaller already. So in terms of a Maya text, I'm trying to remember if we've read this already. Book of the Centipede would be one. Now this is one drawback of not I almost certainly could have read more books by this point. Now I'm paying for it. So... I can always invite Olympi Bichet back. All right, let me just try and do a quick survey. Okay, so Wind's Ruin is Abbot Thomas. Gemini doesn't speak to Maya. Matthias and Amethyst Imago doesn't. Kanishka the Spider's Door talks about the Spider's Door. Those don't help. This is the drawback about playing this game so many times. It's hard to remember which books I have and which ones I don't. Okay, yeah, the assault ones I don't see working. Hmm. Yeah, it's about the wood, not about Maya. What are the five you remember, though? Valentine DeWolf, Skin of Silver. Not looking good. Okay, Morphe Codex doesn't help. Wonderful Shape, nope. Battle of... Oh, that's one I wanted to check. M is great. I really like M. Battleship Potemkin. Rear Window is also an amazing one. Those are some good picks. And Breathless, Godard. Yeah, Rear Window is out of... Like, I think one of the things I really like about a lot of the Hitchcock movies, but Rear Window in particular, is that they are exceptionally well crafted. Like, as far as a film goes, they're really ones that you can just like watch and really understand, and like you could probably learn a lot about filmmaking just looking at them and how they work. But there are a lot of movies that I really like, and you know, I genuinely like, but they would sort of count as the sort of film snobby sort of ones, and I know I would need to be a little careful in terms of who I recommended them to, because, you know, some people are not necessarily going to like it, right? I think probably, you know, I assume that probably David Lynch fans are well represented in Weather Factory Games audience. But if you sit down and show certain friends David Lynch movies, they are never going to invite you to movie night again. But I think the thing, and particularly for Rear Window, like, I really feel that those are the ones that you can just put on, and like everybody's gonna like those. Network's another one like that for me, actually. I think Network is a really exceptionally well written movie that still holds up. It's possibly even more relevant today, frankly. But yeah, Rear Window is great. Wonderful choice. You're not out here recommending M over Fear Pod. Well, yeah, I feel like M. I feel like M is one that could be enjoyed, but is not, probably not as mainstream as, I don't know. I think M's really good, but I think as soon as you do a foreign language, you're gonna lose some people. Um, there's a couple that might, but excuse me, I'm actually willing to say that I might be missing the Maya book. So I'll accept the shortcoming. Let's get to noon. Morning, the third hour, when the office of terce was once sung. Watch as the day opens like a door. Yeah, no, that's fair. I mean, I'm not gonna lie. I've never had like main. Sorry, I don't want to make this to be like playing the hipster card or something like that, but I know I've never had mainstream tastes. So it's always like I try not to be. I actually remember specifically when I worked on in movies, there was this gaffer that sorry, it wasn't a gaffer. It was in the electrics, but the gaffer was somebody else. But like, or maybe it's a grip. Anyway, it doesn't matter. It's like make up the job name and it wouldn't matter. But there was this one guy who, like, it was obvious when he had learned a new word because he would just be constantly using it. So like, there's one day when he learned obsequious, and like, you could not get him to shut up using obsequious. And it was kind of funny in the camera department because there was like one guy who was like, "Oh yeah," and he's, you know, referring to me, like System Jocks more like that too. And one of the, well, I think I stood up. I was like, no, he knows what these words mean. Like, that's the way he talks. um, so, and like for me, yeah, it's one of these things. Like I've always had my tastes, and I've always liked, you know, a certain type of thing. And I've never thought of it as, you know, this is, you know, LOL, this movie's for smart people, or LOL, this book is for smart people. I like it because I just happen to like that style. You know, whatever happened, you know, whatever early reading experience I had, or whatever, you know, idea really caught on. It's just a style that I've really liked. Oh yeah, no, okay. So if you didn't know, I did work in movies. Not anymore, obviously, but the yeah. So like when it comes down to, you know, foreign films, old film, I do really like old films. The one drawback is that I've really kind of fallen out of touch with sort of more contemporary things. So like I don't have Netflix, so I kind of rely on whatever people show me on Netflix to be aware of it. I am finally kind of catching up on some of my Apple TV Plus stuff, and there's tons and tons of great stuff out there. I'm not gonna, like, if I understand the complaint how like everything is Marvel, but that just means you're not looking, right? There are plenty of other alternatives out there. There's plenty of great stuff, and you don't need to look that hard. And if you don't like the contemporary stuff, and there's great contemporary stuff out there, you know, a local library will have decades of wonderful films, ones that you may not have ever heard of, that if you let them, they will just give you a completely new understanding of what's possible in terms of movies. And like, so to me, like, the first time I ever saw Winterlight, which is by Ingmar Bergman, and it's almost like one of those like stereotypical old black and white foreign language, all about existentialism, like just the sort of thing that is a stereotype for being a tedious, you know, some jackass wearing a black beret and a trench coat made you watch this on a date and like you never want to talk to them again kind of movie. I genuinely loved Winterlight. It still is one of my favorite movies. Like I think that is an absolutely incredible film. I know better than, you know, hey everybody, we're gonna have movie night and, you know, make somebody watch the story of a priest losing his faith. Like, I know better than that. But like I'm wired in such a way that I actually find that stuff really captivating. So this is a much longer example than it needs to be, but like just to Pro's point of, you know, recommending M over Fear Pong, like I'll be like, everybody loves M, right? And that's not me trying to be the berated dude in a trench coat to, you know, make for a really tedious 2 hours or so. It is actually something I really like, so I accept that I have weird tastes. Moving right along. Better now. It is winter and the storms have tightened the seas. I am sitting before the fire in the sweet bones of the beef and potato pasty in one hand and a hot ale posset in the other. Midday, before the great division, this was the 6th hour, when the priests led hymns to the sun and splendor. Now noon, as they say, is not as it was. Perhaps the new king will change that. I think it's time for us to host the salon. So, The refectory. Here the whole curia used to meet. The librarian and the secretary salvant, vigilant, and enigmatic. Sometimes even the secretary nunciant, though the duties of that office usually kept him away from the house. But there has only ever been one secretary persistent, and she has never liked to eat in company. That was in the good times of the curia's heyday. In later years, the governor of the jail would sit at one end, the librarian at the other, and the clock would tick away the long silences between their words. The salon in the refectory, the room where once the curia met, a fitting venue for a salon. Here one might serve lunch in the afternoon or supper in the evening. A good host will provide at least one first course, one main course, one side dish, and one pudding. Just a reminder, we are serving Honeyscar Jasmine Tea, soothing to the senses, Isle Water from Brandkrug's Deep Springs, Cater and Hero Second Flush Assam, tea from the land of the real unicorn, imported by Cater and Hero. We are also serving first course of boiled egg, neatly packaged nutrition, pale as December dawn. I guess we'll leave the side dishes later. Main course is Stargazy Pie. We're all in the gutter, but some of us are looking to the stars. Wild Lady Windermere's Fan. 2 side dishes, roast potatoes. You really need rosemary for roast potatoes, but fortunately the kitchen gardens at Hush House have never been short of rosemary. And game chips, long before fish and chips, these went crunchily with game. Ideally, you'd want bread sauce and bread crumbs to complete the ensemble, but honestly, it's hard enough not to just stuff these directly into your mouth. And finally, a pudding, baked pear meringue. Harvey Haddington, during his convalescence at the house, became obsessed with meringuing techniques. He was known to sneak down into the kitchens and interfere with the cooks in pursuit of his ideal. So, we'll add Dr. Peel, Yvette Southey, Dr. Ibn Aladim, Mademoiselle Olympie Bichet, and Daymare. My guests take their places for lunch. Keep an eye on the salon in progress. As it progresses, you will need to add soul cards to encourage the conversation to flow. Different guests will need different soul cards. The more guests, the longer the salon will last. There we go. Stress cannot exist in the presence of a pie. I hosted guests for luncheon. Achievement unlocked. Lunch and supper last longer than less formal salons, allowing an extra interaction between your guests. Oh, that's good to know. So you give up most of the day, but you get an extra. You get an extra run. Seven Seals seems very familiar to me, but it is possible that was the day you used your one skip. Seventh Seal is definitely a good one. I do still like Seventh Seal is much better known than Winterlight, and I think it's a good movie too. But I think between the two, if I had to watch one, I would probably pick Winterlight. Although again, Seventh Seal is wonderful. Like that definitely both I would be happy with both. But yeah, I don't know. Reasoned discussion. Raise a complex question. Add a wisp card. Olympie is writing a novel where one of the characters is a criminal chemist specializing in acids and poisons. She's hoping Dagmar can help with her research. Dagmar is immediately wary and keeps insisting that she only knows about lemon juice and things. But once Olympie explains that the protagonist is based on coquille, she relaxes enough to discuss the properties of Glassfinger toxin. Lessons, solutions, and separations. Conversation ebbs and flows. Lively conversations. Say something witty. Add a shout card. I don't really say anything witty. I say things that get Oswin Meow accusing me of being a dad. Yvette and Olympi continue their theorizing about the fundamentally fabulous or metaphorical nature of the gods who were stone. Perhaps the flint is only a cooling shard of the forge's impulses. Perhaps the tide represents the Grail's unconscious desire for peace. Olympi proposes to commission Yvette to write a series of articles for the Kerishim Review. Lesson, putrefactions, and calcinations. So I've not seen His Girl Friday, but you do not remember if you saw it in class for the first time. I remember that only 2 or 3 of all the films were in English, so having that and Rear Window is semi-unlikely. No, this is fun. I like this stuff. I don't always get a chance to talk about this. Like I said, I do not mind mainstream stuff. I think mainstream stuff is wonderful, right? I think Hollywood definitely does not get enough credit for the high quality that it produces. Now that doesn't, like, independents do some great stuff as well. And in fact, some of the independent studios that came out, like Fox Searchlight, is still winning Oscars. And there was an effort to do things like that in gaming. So the EA Originals, Ubisoft had their own sort of boutique label. That was the one that produced Valiant Hearts. Even Humble was trying stuff like this for a little bit. But it really feels like only EA has kind of kept theirs. And definitely that program looks quite different from what it was before. But that's the one that produced stuff like A Way Out and Fee and It Takes Two, Sea of Solitude. All right. I don't like going away from the salon, but I do want to try and make something of the day as well. This is one of the reasons why I've been trying to get a few more elements of the soul, because you'll notice if we had, say, 2 core, I'd have 4 or maybe 3 times left. All right, wistful asides, instinct, and emotion. So far this has been a pretty decent little salon for us, just in terms of what elements have been requested. We're not going to be able to act on any of this until the next day, but Yvette speaks of her monograph on Lagia's turn, the ascension of the Queen Unsated to sit at the Red Grail's left hand, in which she develops a consistent Jungian interpretation of the myth. Aladim reacts with skeptical amusement. He claims to have met Lagia, but Yvette is undaunted. Things don't have to be real to be true, she points out. So, I wasn't planning on this to happen. I've definitely not seen all the interactions, but it's actually quite meaningful now that we did this, that we actually looked into this history and we saw that Ibn Aladim is actually a historical figure, because this claim that he has met Lagia is not just necessarily that Lagia is somewhere in the Mansis, or that he's somehow met her through some sort of encounter. Now, that's possible that that's the case. But we do also have the possibility here that both of them were alive at the same time, and that Ibn Aladim is just simply recalling an actual memory that he had from presumably his time as an ambassador. Lively chatter. Inject a little gaiety, add a core card. So I think we're good enough now that I should be able to complete the salon with every task. Aladim and Olympi exchange stories of meetings with pre-human dead, gentle things that yearn for a redder sun, and hungrier things that seek human blood to satisfy that yearning. say something witty, add a Shapt card. That should be the last that we need. I'm going to get a confounding parable while I can. What am I doing? I don't even know which of the... I think I'll just read the other line. Aron and Dagmar greet each other with delight and are soon engaged in another round Aron and Dagmar greet each other with delight and are soon engaged in another round of their perennial riddle game. But Aron becomes haughty when he realizes that Dagmar has asked him about Sorrow's solvent just to see if she can make the ex-hooded prince's teeth stick out hissing. That is actually a really big revelation. So I don't know if Oswin's still here, but for those of you that are wondering, so I did ask Oswin as to what the nature of Aaron Peel is. So we've got Dr. Aaron Peel, exile, riddlemonger, thunderskin devotee, I'd rather say confidant, impeccably dressed, but always in the dark clothing, so the stains don't show. Dark dressings, too, at his ankles and his wrists. I won't take a seat. It's kind of you to offer. It would be unkind of me to accept. So we have, where was it? The Ceaseless Tantra. Where did I put that? Oh, no, not the Ceaseless Tantra. Flayed Tantra. This Tantra is recorded as being spoken by an enigmatic individual identified as Peel, with many of the qualities of the mythological Naga. The Flayed Tantra played a notable part in Alexander Sparrow's paranoid pamphleteering. So, if you give this to Peel, he does say, undiplomatic librarian. I'm done with that part of my life. So, as it says here, right, Aron and Dagmar greet each other with delight and are soon engaged in another round of their perennial riddle game, but Aron becomes haughty when he realizes that Dagmar has asked him about Sorrow's solvent just to see if she can make the ex-hooded prince's teeth stick out hissing. So, in this case here, that's a bit, so the bandages and such are, well, I'm assuming this does not require elaboration now, if it's called the Flayed Tantra. I have a little bit of time left, but I think it's probably better for me not to, just on the odd chance I have another encounter. I don't want to give up the core or the health or anything like that. I've always disliked it when it's something like 1,000. There we go. This is why I didn't. Okay, ask about dreams. The 1,000 best spent, like 2,000 hours spent, at least 2,000 hours spent watching movies. I feel like you need to be a little more narrow in the recommendations. Yvette asks Aladim what he remembers of his parents. He replies that he recalls only their deaths. He speaks of those deaths with a dispassion that seems to surprise him more than it does her. Oh yeah, well there's Sight and Sound poll as well. The guests leave happy. You've gained an additional potent memory, which we've probably already got. Okay. A lively meal concludes. So, a bunch of elements of the soul. So we got putrefactions and calcinations. I've gained more understanding of putrefactions and calcinations. Lively Salon. You've held a Lively Salon. This is a marker to remind you that you can't hold another one until next season. Satisfaction. Wolf Stories. A Curious Hunch. Solutions and Separations. Stone Stories. Hill and Hollow. And another Solutions and Separations. So all in all, I'd say that was a pretty good run for us. Now, we theoretically could try and level some of this stuff up. I think I'm just going to take the Confounding Parable and carry on, and I think I might wrap up for tonight. I know some of the chat was dedicated to motion pictures, but I think I need to wrap. First of all, it's 2:30 in the morning. Second, I do need to kind of move on with some of the other stuff that I had planned. So, The Other Line, one of Samuel Savage's more thoughtful works, an allegorical play about the city Clarity, a city that is also a book, and the sentences which inhabit it. The Lord's Proverbial and the Lord's Disquisitional war in the streets of Clarity, while the punctuants get drunk on ink and supply the jokes, though by Savage's usual standards there aren't very many jokes. The final act sees the Lord's Proverbial unsealing the city Clarity's gate to expel the population into the unknown. The formula that they use for the unsealing is a real one. It can be used with knock and preliminal meter to create a gate sign of power. I'm just trying to think. I can probably give you an example of this working. So that's one of the more clear examples of them telling you how to do something. So if we take the Moth Orchid, the Shapt, preliminal meter. There you go, secret threshold. Preliminal meter with Prentice level knock creates a secret threshold. For Scholar level recipe, if I add a memory, it'll resolve to a knock insight. So that would just get us our Curious Hunch back. But I've got what I needed with the Confounding Parable. We'll just leave it at that. And in the next stream, what I will do is so first of all, I'm going to read, well, I guess I don't have to actually, but there was the Radical Measure glossed version. I was going to read that with the Confounding Parable, Inks of Power, and the Lunar Globe, and that was going to be so I could level up Sky Stories. What I may want to do is start looking at these lessons and see how can I put them towards. So actually a great example of this would be Coil and Chasm. So I think Stone Stories and Hill and Hollow would be two that I can use to level up Coil and Chasm. So that one's definitely accounted for. You know, technically, I think I'll use the Hill and Hollow and the Wolf Stories, because Nectar's a little hard for me to come by. Under the other things that I wanted to level up, so Edict's Liminal needed Moth and Knock. So that's 2 of the 5. So it's just putrefactions and calcinations that we don't have a roll for. But yeah, Coil and Chasm is going to be a little bit of a pain just because it 435 out of 1,000. Ugh. Georges Millet. I like that one. Yeah, so our main focus, so for the rest of winter, first of all, we want to make sure we digest these lessons. That won't be too difficult. If I can, I'll try and also translate them into, or like I'll try and get the books that I need written. Essentially what I want to do is just try and get as many of the things as I can committed to the Tree of Wisdoms, because I don't have anything else I can do with the salon for the evening. Now, I may want to try and make some progress inside the house. I could, for instance, try and hire a special visitor, but that's not as big of a priority as maybe trying to get some of these special books that my guests want and such. So, in any case, the only thing about the salons is definitely I tend to just focus on them, and that translates into, tends to translate into a bit of a wasted day. So I'll just see the evening finish up. The only thing I kind of wish that I maybe did was, we do have some opportunities as far as these rooms. So I don't think it would be that hard for us to go through the trapped cell. Alright, daybreak. Memories fade, assistance departs, but the soul is refreshed. I don't know. Something that gets me more lessons is always good. So, we are October 10th, or we're October 10th. Or sorry, not 10th, 18th. Thank you everybody for hanging out. In terms of future Book of Hours streams, the plan is definitely to see this through to the end of House of Light on stream, and then following that, I will be continuing on the playthrough on YouTube. But yeah, I suspect I'll probably be finishing on stream first, and I do, as much as I really like playing this, I do want to kind of get back to some variety in the broadcast. So I think I will probably be wrapping up Cyberpunk. I'll probably look at some of the other things that were sort of left hanging while I spent some more time in Brandkrug. But we're far off from wrapping up the playthrough, so we don't need to worry about that. But for those of you that do like the stream and do want to see more of the live experience, I will be back to the regular schedule Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. That will be until, I think it would basically be the next holiday, so that's probably November 11th. So that's in 4 weeks from now. Oh, actually, hang on. Okay, yes. So it's not just so depending how this works out, I think the 11th may actually be another situation where there's the day. No, there isn't. Okay. So that one won't have the Dirty Rectangles meetup on the Wednesday. However, I am going to be traveling in November. I don't remember exactly when, but I think it is actually quite likely that I'm going to wind up missing a couple of streams during a week because I am not going to be in the country. But anyways, I will, as soon as I know exactly when that's happening, I will let you know. Otherwise, November 11th is the next planned absence. Otherwise, I will be continuing to play Book of Hours until we complete it. And then following that, we'll figure out what we're doing, but most likely Cyberpunk on Fridays, and then we'll see the rest of it. Finally, let's see if I can host anything. So nobody is doing Book of Hours, but, well, I am, obviously. Cultist Simulator, no. All right, I have absolutely nobody I know online, so I will give you a couple final shout-outs. Prosciutto Fist, somebody who does occasionally play Book of Hours. Oswin Meow, who is currently playing quite a bit of Book of Hours, also wonderful to have inside of the channel. I'm going to get some sleep. Thank you for watching. I'm sorry I don't have anybody to host, but I think it's probably the hour. Have a good evening, and we'll see you Monday. Take care.